Nancy Hall, Herb Freeze, and myself. So we have a quorum, that's good. And we don't have anybody on the phone, which is good. I think we all knew that Chris and Ron were not gonna be able to make the meeting. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the October 8th, 2015 minutes. I think we all had time to put our comments in. Are there any further comments on those minutes? Corrections, changes, what have you? If not, I'll entertain a motion that they be approved.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Moved by Mr. Geppert, seconded by Mr. Freeze. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5 to 0. Okay. Financial update. Chris isn't here with us, so I don't know that there's much to report. All of you may have seen my question of her about the profit and loss statement for the period of October 2014 through September of 2015. And I must admit, I'd like to, when she's around, have a further discussion of that. She explained that the reason we apparently had this great surplus of income related to not having Cypress Grove as we planned, and a couple of other items, but the number seems so big to me that I find it hard to believe that accounted for that kind of thing. I mean, we were talking about $907,000, as I recall the number, which is a huge number. And so I think we need to have a further discussion of that at the next meeting, unless anybody else.
Did she send an email regarding that?
Well, she did. She did. She explained it, but I unfortunately, I wasn't able to go back, and I think we need her present.
I couldn't understand where the money
Yeah.
came from.
Well, let me just get her answer. As shown on the report, the income is not only from extra income received, fire and impact fees and settlement, but also budgeted funds not spent. So that would be Cypress Grove, tree line wall, waterways, etc. But the number, as I said, seems so large
How
that.
big is a part of that is waterways?
Well, yes, I agree. A big chunk of it is waterways.
600,000.
Is it 600,000?
590 was.
That was to have been spent last year?
Well, cume, it's a cume number, not just last
Right,
year.
right. But so what, out of your budget last year, what did you spend? About 440,000? I mean, your budget was 442 or something like that?
Yeah, budget was 442.
42. And did you spend any of that from October 14th to
That would have
September
been
15th?
last year, so that's 13, 14.
Yeah.
we
No, 14, 15.
Okay, 14,
She
15,
has this on.
we are at 61.6 out of 442.
Yeah, so there's.
Last year, we were 216 out of 412.
Okay, so there was a large chunk of yours
Which
then.
is coming in this quarter.
Right, that wasn't spent, so that's.
Yeah, we've received one invoice for 108,000, I think, the approval for the TSI.
Yeah.
The first came through at 108,000.
Mhm.
But we expect more right behind it.
In Chris's financial
Yeah.
report, she has the pond's money on.
Yes, right, yeah. So, I mean, that's a chunk of it, that's 360,000 of it. But
Still a lot of money.
the
There's still a
number-
lot more.
The number is 907,000, which really just blows my mind. I mean, because I don't, it just seems like a huge amount, and I'd like to, I guess, perhaps discuss it in a little more length when she's here, that the positive variances are, in access control, there's a pretty big one. So, I'm sorry, access control is not, it's negative. But there are a number of fairly significant under expenditures, most of which she's explained. I guess I hadn't realized that Cypress Grove was such a big number. And our income was 200,000 higher, so I guess had I, looked at this, I would have realized, but it just seems like a huge number to me. In any event.
Well, it's a good situation to be in.
Yes, it is. I agree. That makes me,
Well, we were expecting some, kind of an aside, but we
Yeah.
were expecting and budgeted money for Cypress Grove Ponds to be turned over 10 months ago.
Yes, right.
They're still not.
Right, still not.
And that item alone is about $40,000.
yeah,
And it's gonna be even greater next year because they keep telling us we're gonna get more ponds.
yeah.
And I had occasion to talk to Philip Caldwell in the last Board of Supervisors meeting.
Yeah.
And he tells me the same thing every time. Yeah, it's coming soon, it's coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't come. So as long as they're paying it, I guess, it's.
Yeah, I guess we should be happy.
I am happy. but-
Yeah. Well, okay, that was my only comment. Anybody else comments on
I have a question
financials?
regarding, actually, Chris could probably answer it, but,
Yeah.
and I'll report this later, but Scott, Tony Pierce and I met regarding the assets and redoing the new maintenance agreement. He asked, do we get proof of payment from,
Well,
when something is paid, does she physically get proof of payment?
she answered your email on that, didn't she?
I did not see an answer.
Oh, okay.
I always get a document that says
Paid?
paid and the rec check number that goes through it.
Okay, well, that's
So if
proof
they
of
do
payment.
that for ponds, yeah, I'm sure
That's-
they do it for everything else, but
That's what Tony had asked, because he's putting it in the contract.
Scott-
And the proof of payment
Yes.
also has the invoice they submitted to us.
Right,
Yeah.
I think ST does provide all that. too.
Okay.
So we get the invoice,
Okay.
that we owe it, then we get the proof that we paid it, the rec
Yeah.
number that's cut for it,
Okay.
and the date.
Okay.
All right. 'Cause
Yeah,
he-
they close the loop very well.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on financials? Discussion? Okay, we'll move on to Safety and Security Work Group. Ron is not here.
Boy, we're gonna get done in an hour today.
You are gonna be a happy camper today. But we have some issues to come up, and in the president's meeting this morning, the issue again was raised and I think Ron and the SSWG has to take this on, but people are concerned about some people walking through the gate who are not checked out at the guardhouse. How big a problem that is, I'm not sure. I don't think it's a massive problem, but
Well,
that
it's
was.
like bike riders coming through.
Yeah, or bike riders, yeah. People who do not
But
pass through the gate.
if we can't stop a car, because it's a public road.
Well,
what right do we have to
the,
challenge a walker?
what we can do, apparently, as I understand it, is we can challenge people. We can ask them for information when they come through the gate.
Which is voluntary that they comply or not, but yes.
Yeah, right. And the suggestion was that we put some kind of a gate there and have them have to go to the guardhouse to put something in. I'm only telling you that this was raised at the,
Okay.
at the meeting.
I think I would support a sign that requests them to check in, but
Yeah.
a gate,
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting, we have a relative now that's out at Shell Point, the Securitas handles Shell Point, and they actually stop bike riders and pedestrians coming
Mhm.
through their gates.
Do they?
Mhm.
Are they
Public
public
roads
roads?
Whether they a public road.
No, I don't know whether they're public
Yeah,
roads or
right.
not.
No.
Yeah,
That's the
if,
key
if
issue.
if we were no longer a public road, that.
If we ever get to that
if
point.
If we ever get to that
Yeah.
point, then
Then.
I think we're in a position to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't, does anybody have a sense that this is a big problem? Lots of bike riders or walkers coming through that gate? I don't have any sense.
No,
of
the only comment I heard about it was whether the pedestrian pathway sidewalk should be shared between walkers, bikers, and golf carts.
Yes.
Yes,
And I cannot believe we'd even think that a golf cart should be on the sidewalk.
outside the gate, yes.
Well, not outside the gate,
No.
between the gate and tree line.
And tree line.
Only when
On
we
the
have the
multi-
wider
on the
side.
Wider,
multimodal,
But while it's that narrow one, I thought it was pretty clear that we wanted people in the
Right.
road.
That's right, and.
But apparently
and-
it's not that clear.
Well, and that's the reason that there was, they're giving, the SSWG is giving some consideration to putting some kind of posts there that would prevent a golf cart from getting on there, flexible posts of some kind, so they're looking at ways to do that. However, the whole issue of where golf carts should be was brought up at the meeting, and Jane had apparently sent, I did not see it, apparently sent an email to the members of the CDD about this subject. So Jane, why don't you go ahead and,
I'm Jane Schaefer, and I live in Pelican Preserve, and I have with me a friend and dear neighbor, Rose Hart. I may speak for her, but she also has some strong thoughts that she may want to share. But it's feared that we are becoming a very dangerous place, and we're now up to 5,000 doors, which means 3,000 people in our nice little community. More people means more danger, and that's to be expected. But what is not to be expected is that you folks have made Pelican Preserve more dangerous than it needs to be. And I'm referring to the advice you give our residents to drive their golf carts in the auto truck lane. Now, a little old lady doing what she's told to do, riding her golf cart in the auto truck lane, could get rear-ended by one of those and have knowledge about, you all have knowledge about 40 mile an hour is our speed limit, actually 30 is, but people are going 40, and a golf cart only goes 20 mile an hour. And that is a disaster just waiting to happen. No Florida law, regulation, or common sense requires people to drive in the automobile truck lanes. Don't be surprised if we have a serious or worse accident this year, and when the lawyers come out, guess where they'll be coming? So I speak to you for safety of all the residents in Pelican Preserve. And did you want to say something?
Well, I just want to say that
and
I.
Rose, if you would come up to the podium, or is that a problem? Oh, if that's a
She can
problem.
stand.
Make an
Yeah,
exception. That's fine.
we're making an
Oh,
exception,
sure,
I'm
sure.
sorry,
Okay.
I apologize,
Well,
yep.
I refuse to drive in the road. I've seen too many aggressive drivers come so close to me that I just ride in the bicycle lane. And if I'm told that I can't do it, I'm gonna do it anyway, because I'm scared to death. And I just hope that, that you can pass something that we can drive in the golf car, or in the bicycle lane. That we can share it with them at least.
Well, Herb, you want to
Yeah,
comment on that?
I
know
have
that
some
we just-
thought, I've thought about this too, both, community-wide and from my own personal experience. And with all due respect, I feel that it's actually safer to drive in the right-hand automobile lane, okay? And the reason is, if I drive in the bike lane, it's a very narrow lane. And if there's a car passing me on the left, there's not that much room between my golf cart and the car. Whereas, if I drive in the automobile lane, there's much more room between my golf cart and the car trying to pass me.
Well, that happened to me yesterday. I was in the bike lane and there was two cars in each lane. And they both passed me right up.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly my point.
But they're so aggressive,
That's another issue.
Well, that's- and
That's a
that's-
se-
I mean,
it's
and
a
they're
separate
going
issue.
40, 45 miles, nobody goes 30 miles an
And
hour.
Yeah, we know,
that is an issue, and the speed limit is something that has to be addressed somehow. Cars are supposed to be going 30, and the group is starting to work on that. Now, the bike lane, if it was designated a bike lane, and I think it was.
It was.
It was.
Then, and it's not, if I remember correctly, it doesn't have, it's not exactly wide enough, according to the guidelines, to fit a golf cart. Now, people try to get their golf cart in it, but it's really not wide enough for a golf cart. And interestingly enough, the laws in Florida, if it's been designated, I think, as a bike lane, and this would have to be checked by the group, but it's not a multimodal lane. It's bikes only. So we've got a problem about having anything else in that lane except for bikes, because it's not an extension of the road to the curb. It's that part of it has been designated for bikes. Day before yesterday, I was coming into the community, and I followed from the stop sign at the town center a golf cart that was straddling the bike lane out into the lane, and I just sat behind him till the next stop sign. It turned out he wanted to make a left to go up into the new section, and what he did was he knew I was behind him, and he just reached out and to encourage me to pass him by, because what he wanted to do was go zip all the way across 2 lanes of traffic and make that left-hand turn. And that's not good for people with golf carts, I have to tell you. The older I get, the harder it is for me to be quite as quick on the draw as I was when I was 20, to be able to.
My golf cart only goes 16, 17 at the most. It doesn't go any faster.
Yeah.
But, you know, Nancy, your comment about making a left-hand turn for the golf cart, if we are on our bicycle, I don't own a golf cart, so, but as a bicycle person, I also have to get in that left lane.
Right.
And it's the traffic lane. And as a bicycle, I use a hand signal and I get in the left-hand turn lane. And I do that when I'm going to the town center. Anywhere, if I have to make a left turn, a bicycle should make the left turn in the traffic lane.
They should, yeah.
That's the law, the rule. I mean, I'm almost positive that's the law.
Bob, comment?
Yeah, prior to Cypress Grove and the influx of new homes that we've had, we paid for and commissioned a couple of traffic studies. This group here has. And at no time in the presentations that we were given was it ever suggested that the bike lane be anything other than bikes. And it was very specifically pointed out that bike was only for bike and the golf carts were supposed to be in the street. Good, bad, or indifferent, this is what our consultants told us in reference. They cited all the various laws. So I don't know that it is an optional thing for us. I think it should be investigated. I think we've got the right group looking at it, and I completely support anything to improve our safety.
Now, one of the things would be to look at alternatives. And an alternative might be to think about like the sidewalk that goes to down Tree Line to the shopping center. That's a multimodal sidewalk. A possibility would be to investigate how much it would cost to widen our sidewalks to be multimodal. Jane? Sorry.
Well, do any of you know why that lane is only 4 feet wide?
Because it's exclusively for bikes.
That's the standard bike lane, isn't it?
No. What I've read, and I think it was in the Plummer report, unfortunately, WCI did not give consideration to the width that is necessary. Now, 4 feet is okay for a bike. We've got a line that evidently cuts us a few inches off. They didn't even think about it until the road was in, the curbs were in, the grass was in, and the walks were in. And for that reason, and it's what are state, county, so-and-so regulation that a road has to be so wide for cars. And they could only squeeze out that much.
Well,
The most-
actually,
I think-
one of the studies.
The most recent study.
One of the studies did give us an option
Yes,
of narrowing
Narrowing.
the vehicle lanes.
right.
Uh-huh, did it?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that was, it was one of the
Uh-huh.
proposals of
Proposals.
many. But there was a lot of cost involved in restriping and doing all this thing. And it wasn't, readily apparent that that looked like a great idea in listening to it. It was a
Well,
lot of money for not much gain.
And part of that was to reduce the speed, because
Right.
the width of our roads, our speed limit's at 30, but the width of our roads, our lanes are are so wide that it legitimately accommodates cars going, 45, 50 miles
Yeah,
an hour, something like
45,
that.
I believe.
45? And this study that WCI did talked about narrowing the roads to cut down
The
speed.
Narrowing the lanes.
Narrowing the lanes.
Yes.
But I think
yeah.
the way it stands now is, I think the roadway width is about 11 feet, I think, which I think is a standard
Standard, yeah.
width. And I think the bike lane is what, 4 feet?
4 feet.
4
It
feet. Okay.
needs to be 4 feet or 5, but because the error that was made early on, and they said it would be too costly to extend what they had done on the right side going up in the right, is the way it was stated. I can understand where you're coming from all these, but where I'm coming from is safety. Safety for everyone in here. And I don't see that much traffic in golf lanes. I don't see, or in the golf carts, and I don't see that many bikes. But from the state, it says that #1 priority is a pedestrian. Bikers have to give the pedestrian the right of way. Well, I don't see people walking up that lane. The next priority is golf carts. And I don't know if all of you have golf carts, but in one of the studies, it says that they're very vulnerable, even more vulnerable than a bike rider. Because if they make a sharp turn to get out of the way of that fast vehicle, more than likely the golf cart falls over. They might it might fall on the person, or it might hurt the person. So there's lots of ways to look at this, and I'm asking you to look at it. Safety for our residents.
Jane, I think the problem is, though, that there is a question as to whether that's safer or less safe than changing it. As Herb expressed, as Herb's comments expressed, it's possible one could make the argument that it is less safe to let people drive in that lane than it is than the current situation. Less safe in terms of there's less room for 2 cars to pass that golf cart, and there's also less safety for the bicyclists
Forces
because
the
it happens to be
Right.
a bicycle lane. So I think, I understand your argument, but I don't think it's a black and white or a closed case that would necessarily make things safer.
Does it help you to think that for 12 years, that was a golf cart? And Rick Mann just bawled us out if we moved out. It was not safe. And we stayed over, and if a car came by, even close to them, we knew that we could move in towards the curve. My other idea that everyone has to be vigilant. I can't call for any one of you. You have to be vigilant for yourself, for safety. So,
I think, it seems to me that we would be addressing, the real problem is people driving too fast.
yes,
The real problem is people driving too fast, and by allowing people to get into that, with the golf cart, getting into that lane, we're not gonna solve that problem, and I'm not convinced that it would make us any safer. That's where I come from, and
We've had a lot of discussions.
Yeah.
many, many more than I would care to sit in on things such as
Uh-huh.
whether we have stop signs, we don't have stop signs, whether we do this or do that to slow people down and make the community safer. And I've said it many times in the past, and I'll say it again. If we truly want to slow everyone down, we will eventually put bumps in the road that will force them.
And
Because
see,
people won't hit the bumps at a high speed.
bumps don't work. My husband
Well-
was taken out of the community many times very fast, and for emergency vehicles.
I understand
Yeah.
all that. But
Okay,
bumps
well-
and dips slow people down.
Yes, but
And
are they
everything else-
safe for the
excuse me,
ill?
Everything else is going to rely on personal responsibility and people slowing themselves down. I honestly have no faith in that ever happening. I honest to God don't. People are gonna do what they're gonna do. And until we finally bite the bullet, so to speak, and put those bumps in and take all the negative consequences that come with it, people are gonna speed.
Well,
Well-
there's alternatives.
There are
I
We've been talking this to death for years,
I
literally.
understand, but it is a continuing problem. So that's the
Absolutely.
reason we've been talking it to death.
I'm going to end.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you all said. We had 2 officers come to the first safety and security meeting, and when we told them we had to ride out in the auto truck lane, they said, if we come through and we see anyone in that lane, we'll say, move to the right, it is not safe there. Now, the officer that I spoke to was Officer Beener, and we've done quite a bit of talking, and I told the committee they can call him, and he called me and he said, I cannot get involved in a discussion that you're having in our community. So my point is, if the police come, they can push people over.
I have a question, and again, I don't own a golf cart, but you say you prefer to ride in the bike lane. Now, when you make the left turn to the town center, when do you turn? At the stop sign, or do you get in the left
If
lane?
there's no traffic coming, I go over
You go to the
Just
left-hand
just
turn.
prior to the
to the
intersection.
left. But if there's traffic behind me, I wait to the right until the traffic clears, then I make a left.
And you make the
from
full-
right-hand lane.
From the bicycle lane, you make
No,
the
not
left-hand
right.
turn.
Yeah, right.
That's not safe either.
And
But what
Thank
else
you.
are you gonna do, you know?
Well, that's what we have to explore, is what alternatives are, Rose.
Exactly.
To find other ways, because right now, the way it's set up, in order for us to keep the ability to use our golf carts, and for a lot of us, some of us, it's their only means of transportation in the community to get from one place to another. We have to work it so that people can continue to use their golf carts, but have it legal and have it safe. And so there's, you know,
I understand the concern about safety, because when I'm riding my bike, I'll go to the passing lane to make my left turn, and I am scared there's a car gonna be behind me, but that's what
I mean,
the
what-
bicycle's told to do.
If I go over to the new area, I live in Bellagio, I pull out of Bellagio, and as soon as I can get over to the left-hand lane, I get in that lane, and then I make a left
With your bike?
turn. No, with my
with your
golf
golf
cart.
cart.
My golf cart. Okay, I'm entitled to use that lane, okay? And I think it's safer to do that than wait till I get down to Cypress Grove and then,
It's a tough
try and
question.
scoot across.
Well,
I
and,
understand everybody's concern.
I mean,
excuse me.
everybody, feels different about it.
Well, the reason I even came forward is I saw the agenda that I have resigned from safety security because I wasn't in sync with them, let me say it that way. But they had a big long list, and it was no golf carts here, no golf carts there, no golf carts not there, at intersections where. So let's think positively and maybe do more thinking about what needs to be done. And I thank you.
I would, yeah, thank you, Jane. And I would say that this comes in under the whole rubric of the safety security group and the things that they are working on, which relate, some of which relate to speeding. And I think we will ask them to include again the consideration of whether there should be a change, you know, whether it makes sense to make a change.
Or what
with
kind
regard-
of alternatives.
Or what kind of alternatives there are to that. You know, but I,
Well, yeah, there are a couple of things I'd like to find out. One from Tony it regards vehicles allowed in the bike lane. What are the regulations?
Tony is already looking at that issue.
Is he? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And the other issue is, are the two roadways in the bike lane the correct width?
For bikes, they are.
Well, apparently Jane didn't think they were.
They could be wider, but they elected to go to the narrower.
Are they standard width?
Yeah. They can either be 4 or 5 feet.
And a combination bike cart path is what, does somebody, I think it's like 6 feet or something.
It's wider than 4.
Oh, it is wider than.
Yeah, like the
four.
one going
It's
down
big.
Tree Line, right?
Does anybody know what that is?
No.
Well, the one, no, it's 8 feet for the multimodal.
It's 8.
Oh, is that what it is?
8 on the
Oh, so it's
multimodal.
8
Thought it's
The
big.
multimodal is 8 feet.
It's wide, which
It's
means
wide.
would end up, if we did that, probably only having one lane on Pelican Preserve Boulevard.
Well, the walk is 5 feet. I think it was misstated a couple of times. I know, I've been driven, I measured, I drove, I measured, it's 5 feet wide. So that, to me, that could be an alternative,
The walking lane.
yes. But not bicycle, not all our golf carts, only the 2/10 of a mile up to the gatehouse, so that our people would know coming from north or going up Tree Line would know that they could safely get up there until they got, to the intersection, and then they would have to go out. That would solve some problems. And signs,
Okay,
thank you for this.
you're welcome. Gail, did you have a comment?
What was the Save the Road thing that they passed years ago for Pelican Preserve? Or, I mean,
Share the road, share the
Save
road.
Share the road?
Mhm.
What did
I
that?
think that related to bicyclists.
No, I think
Was it?
that's
No,
why
no,
the carts
save a
were
golf
told to
cart.
go in the
Golf-
traffic lane.
Yeah.
Golf carts and cars, that was what.
Share the road,
Share
golf
the
carts
road.
and cars.
I mean, isn't that the rule?
That's the current,
That's the
that
current
is
law.
the
State
current
law.
rule.
Yeah.
That's the current rule. I don't know if it's a state law, but it's the current rule.
Sarah, isn't that a state statute or something regarding golf carts?
In review of the statute, it says that golf carts are to be on vehicle lanes or designated
Golf
golf
cart.
cart paths, which are your multimodal and like paths that are made like on your golf courses. But other than that,
Traffic.
it's traffic.
Other than that, what? Silent.
No, it's traffic lanes.
It's silent.
No, traffic. So
Traffic.
they're either in the traffic lanes or golf cart designated paths.
And I read that, and I propose that we talk about it, we think seriously about it, and then make a decision that makes our walkers, our bikers, our golf carts, everyone safe.
Okay, Jane will definitely take that advisement, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had a question about
Sure.
something else. He had something, another part of his report. He was talking about, was it here? He talked about the trap gate somewhere here.
I'm looking at his most recent report. That's an earlier one, is that it?
Is this the?
What are you looking at?
It was something, there was something that Diane sent out pretty recently about, looking at the trap gate and going back through the Alliance and asking for the Alliance to do a survey about having that trap
Yes.
gate go away.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion and a thought. I don't know how interested, the alliances in doing something like that. They've declined to do stuff like that in the past. It occurs to me, and I never thought I would be sitting here saying this, but that having that trap gate, not just for the flow of traffic coming in, but is causing a problem, particularly now we've got the other lane open for traffic to go through. Because people will come up and just make their decision based on where the shortest line is to try to get through. And oftentimes when, not oftentimes, but several times when I've gone through it, what I've seen happen is somebody that wanted to be in the right-hand lane to make a quick turn, or somebody who's in the right-hand lane that wants to make that quick turn to the left, they're in the wrong lane, and so they go through the respective gates properly, but then they're crisscrossing to try to get to where they want to be. And rather than putting a survey out, it's really this committee, in my opinion, and the supervisors that have the decision to make about it. And my suggestion would be, we're coming into high season, and it's gonna only get more congested and more traffic. And that would be, we've got the equipment there for the trap gate. Let's keep it there, but let's take the trap gate down for this season and see what kind of a difference it makes. We were concerned when it went up originally, because we had people tailgating through, but if we have cameras that can catch that kind of activity, and I'd be willing to bet most of the people that piggybacked through were residents just trying to see if they could do it, although I certainly knew there were outsiders that did it. And we had cases of people having golf clubs stolen from their cars by people from the outside and things like that. We haven't heard of anything like that happening since we've had the trap gate that I'm aware of. But is now the time that we maybe give up that trap gate to try to see if we can ease the flow and get people in the right lane, so A, it's not backing up, and B, people get in the right lane so that they can make the turns they want.
We have sporadically done that. The trap gate has been removed, and apparently it improves the flow. Do you want to, Dan, do you want to comment on this, or?
Well, I can, but I think it's
Why
really
don't you
more of a community kind of a.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Dan Mucci from Securitas. So really, it could go either way. It's really a community decision to make. And we have communities that have trap gates, we have communities who don't. And we have 50% of the residents who love them, there's 50% of the residents who don't. If tailgating is an issue, and I think that was the original reason why it was installed, then it's serving its purpose, because really it's to slow everybody down, but what you're gonna get is some residents are gonna be impatient and try to sneak into the other lanes or get that cross traffic that you're talking about.
How serious do you see the cross traffic? Because I think having the reader by the guard works extremely well, because nobody's gonna try to tailgate when the guard's there.
I don't see that particular issue with the cross traffic. I've never heard of any of our officers talk about that. It's more an issue about backing up at that resident gate.
And I think that solved a lot of problems.
Yeah, it did.
At this point, and you have done a great job in regarding the gate. I think the time frame, you got it done pat.
Yeah, it's pretty quick now. It's
a few seconds. Why are people?
it's pretty delayed.
The reason, I'll remind everybody, but the reason the trap gate was installed was not because we were trying to slow down residents from piggybacking, but outsiders
Right.
learned how to come in.
That's right.
Right.
Without the scrutiny of the guard or anything else.
And it's working.
And we go back to the point in time where we had the theft at the golf course. And we all knew what happened. We knew it was a white Monte Carlo, but there was no control. So then we installed the cameras, and as Nancy's rightly said, we now record all of them. That's good. And we've been living with the trap gate that nobody loves, but we tolerate because it gives us a greater sense of security than we had before it. But I agree with John wholeheartedly that I have personally now, when I see the things backed up at the trap gate, I shoot over to the element.
Assuming there's no contractor going through.
Well, I've gotten stuck once or twice, but not on it. But, but Nancy raises a good point, because now we do have photographs than we didn't before. And we may need to get there at some future time. I really think right now, with the level of inhabitants we have, even in season, it might change. But the new gate change
Is working well.
is working, I think, very well.
I do too.
I haven't experienced, the last second, but I'll tell you, I'm one of those kind of people,
That if you came in through the trap gate,
I'm lining up to come in the trap gate, and it's not
Then you see
moving
an opening
to
and
my
go through the
liking,
other
so
side,
I
right?
shoot over.
or once you go through it, you're anxious to get over to make your left-hand
Yeah.
turn.
Herb,
But again, I applaud the effort this has worked, and I think it's working.
Herb,
Well,
as
years
you-
ago,
Herb,
we-
you've been an opponent of the
Oh,
trap
yeah.
gate for a long time. I'd
Yeah.
like to hear your comments.
Yeah, first of all, there was a survey done, I don't know how many years ago. When was it?
10, 11.
10 or 11 years ago.
Oh, 2010,
Oh,
2011.
okay. Okay, and I don't know how many people voted in that, and I don't know who actually did the survey. Was it the Alliance?
No, we did it.
Yeah, we did.
The
Advisory committee?
The advisory committee.
Okay.
did it.
And I don't know, I can't even remember what the outcome of that was, but I think it was slightly in favor.
Oh,
No.
it's significantly in favor.
Significantly.
In favor? Okay.
200 to 600, something on
Okay,
that order.
since that time period, you have a lot of new residents here who may have different opinions. Okay, so I think it's time for another survey, and I'll live with whatever comes out of that, okay? Personally, I think the trap gate is a waste of time, because if I were, up to no good in here, in this community, I would say I'm going to destinations, I would say I'm going to the golf course, I'd make there are so many ways around it that it seems hardly worthwhile to do it. And it does slow up traffic. And that's only going to get worse. We have, 1,500 doors now, over 1,500?
1,500, yeah.
Doors. Going up to 2,500 doors, which means probably about 4,000, 5,000 people.
15.
Some with 2 cars, some with 1 car. I don't know what the stats are. So it's only going to get worse.
Can I ask
But
you?
I guess the question was, is it better? Do you sense it's better?
I sense it is a little better, yeah.
With the
Oh.
second gate.
With the second gate, oh, yeah, of course it is. It's got to be better.
It's great, great thing.
It gives
I
you
agree.
more,
Some of the communities that you probably manage have the big wide gates that open. They're slower than the trap gate,
Much slower.
and people live with that. Just
You might be able to get
What
away
time to
with the
live with it,
cross
guys?
traffic. I mean, your
The
your
point-
issue is once you get through one of the 2 gates, they'll kind of swing
Yeah,
over.
the cross traffic after you go through.
The same solution that I sent you the photos on with regards to the golf carts on the sidewalks. There's flex stakes that you can put in, which are, that's exactly what they are. They're flex stakes. They kind of keep you on the straight and narrow. So if you're coming into the left lane or the right lane, rather than be able to abruptly get past the gate and cross lanes, you can put flex stakes down even a little distance. Let's just say 10 feet. You know what I mean? That'll keep people from being able to cross that quickly.
Decided earlier.
Yeah, until they get through the gate or however you want to do it. But-
Nothing different than driving on
That's correct.
2 lanes of traffic. Guys, you look in your mirrors, you know where the cars are.
Okay, well,
Just-
all I'm saying is, I never thought I would be one advocating taking
No, I
the
never
trap
thought you
gate.
would either.
Trap gate down.
You surprised me.
Is
But
Paul agreeing with you?
he doesn't care, he doesn't object.
Hey, he doesn't get a vote.
And he doesn't get to vote, that's right.
well, I think we should do another survey.
My sense is I personally would just like to see a season under this new system, see how it works.
I agree.
Well, we can always lift the trap gate off at any
Absolutely.
point.
Right.
But I don't,
But we made enhancements to the process. We all agree they're better,
Yeah.
maybe not perfect, but they're better.
What I
happens.
would suggest is we ask you, Dan, and perhaps Sarah, because she also gets reports, let's leave it as is right now, and if we start finding that as the season starts to heat up, that we're starting to have real traffic problems, then we ought to come back and
revisit, yeah.
reconsider it.
Okay.
We can do it at any time. Trudy, do you wanna come up?
Yes, I actually am on the safety,
Yeah.
And security work group, and I am leading this project. And because Ron was not able to be here today, as a work group, we had asked it to be tabled, or I thought we did, until next month. And we were gonna do a formal presentation that, you know, encompassed many of the points that you have already brought up today.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, Dan.
Who was Ron had this tabled by? We have a failure to communicate.
I'm not sure.
All right.
I'm just the communicator, which I thought I happened, but.
And I'll wait till we get further down.
Okay. We're now in safety and security work group, and in that, Dan, are there any things that you have for us from the Securitas point of view that we ought to know about?
Yeah, I mean, there's only two outstanding issues that we're working with Sarah on right now. One of them is the traffic sign, which is in, that we're gonna be installing on Tuesday. The software and the actual product itself will be out there, so we're gonna do a little training session on that Tuesday morning. The second one is there have been some slowdowns on the actual hardware at the gate. Again, volume related, we're not really certain. I know IT was involved. IT made some suggestions to us. You guys own that equipment, so I am trying my best to work with Capture, the software for the gate, and see if I can work with their IT people to determine if it's actually really a hardware issue or what the real issue is before we go out and give you guys a proposal on spending more money on stuff we don't really need. They did dial in today, so I did get a slight update this morning. They dialed in today, and then unfortunate for us, it wasn't really that heavy volume out there, so they really couldn't see the spikes that we have been seeing. So we're just trying to determine if it really is a hardware issue, is it a software issue, is something we can do that will fix it behind the scenes before we actually present anything with money and cost and having to replace anything.
So this is, the guards are seeing a slowdown and getting a reading?
Right, well,
They
yeah,
need,
we've
is
been
that-
processing that transaction.
Mhm.
The printer's extremely slow, it's taking a long time to print the pass, then of course, we start building up people.
Sure, exactly.
So when we had that slowdown, we've said, hey, there might be something wrong with the system, or, you know, so we've gone to the IT people, we've gone into the firewall, we looked at, hey, is there anything else running concurrently on the machine? It's not, it's in a lockdown mode, so there's nothing else you can really run on it, so it's 100% allocated for that system. So we talked to the people that captured today to say, hey, do we have a hardware issue we're not aware of? Do we have a memory issue we're not aware of that's causing these little peaks and valleys? And again, I don't want to come to Sarah and say, hey, we need to get all new hardware at an expense if we can avoid doing that. So we're just trying to determine what that real issue is.
Thank you. Any questions of Dan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing that came up at the meeting this morning was a lot of construction traffic running up and down one of the streets in Matarita. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I think it's a completed neighborhood of some sort.
Well, yes.
It is,
And-
okay,
and
it is.
Solera as well,
Yeah.
apparently.
I'm not sure you can do anything about Solera, because there's still construction out
Yes.
at the far end. But this lady, at the last 2 or 3 meetings, she's complained about the same problem. And there are other ways for the construction vehicles to get to where they need to go, okay?
That's correct.
So it would be, I think, behoove us to look at ways of alleviating all the construction traffic on their road, which is what she wants.
Okay.
Again, I don't know where the street is, you know, you could put up barricades actually to prevent guys coming from the construction site down that road.
Or it's
You could
WCI.
patrol a little more often. If you catch a construction truck going down there, you know, note the license plate and the company, and then give them a call and say, you know,
Sure.
And that falls in line with the concern that was raised to me. There were, I think, 3 cars coming down the boulevard going towards the gate, and one of these flatbeds came down Cypress Grove to make a right-hand turn, and understandably had to make a wide turn and took 2 lanes, but then insisted on driving down the middle and blocking the cars behind him, and then acting out, if you will. And one of the cars pulled into the guardhouse and complained to the guard, and the guard said, well, we can't do anything about it, take it to the police. And I said, well, did you note the license plate number or the name of the company, or ask the guard to do that? Because
Yeah.
I said, I don't think unless they know that they can do anything, but they can prohibit them or talk to
Absolutely.
the, so maybe, Sarah, is that something we can?
There was
Alert
discussion,
them.
there was discussion at the meeting this morning about the fact that it's really WCI that has to crack down on
Contractors.
on these contractors. And that what we need to do is, we need to get to know,
To identify them.
identify them. And that it's WCI has gotta say, hey, if you don't stop doing this, you're off the property.
But can we put something out to the community that says they need to bring this to somebody, whoever that
Bring it
somebody
to the
is?
safety work group.
Hmm?
Just shoot them an email.
Well, I think what needs to be done, if somebody
Has
like
to be
that is
done
identified, a letter
immediately.
needs to go to WCI documenting it, okay? And if there's ever an accident, then to some extent, WCI will be on the hook because they've been warned about it, about the problem.
But here again, in order to have a consistent channel of communications,
Right.
I'd make the suggestion that we alert the community to tell our working group and let them be the conduit to WCI, and they'll keep score, know how many times or how many contracts, and then you can really put some teeth into it. Because we do the same thing with the ponds, because we don't have people calling over here, over there. They only call our group. We now have a record, and we keep track of that.
I think a lot of what might be happening too, and I'm not 100% certain on it, but a lot of these vehicles are coming in through the construction gate, which is where they should be coming in.
Right.
But when they get into the community, depending on where they're doing the construction and where they're working, they exit out the front gate.
That's right.
Yeah, right,
That's
yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
And I know, I'm almost positive there are signs that say no construction traffic beyond this point.
There are.
Is it? Yeah. So it is a WCI thing saying, hey, your contractors are coming into the proper gates to come in, but they're taking the easy way out to get up on the tree line as opposed to going all the way back around
You know, I
again.
just
And
think we
that's-
have a lot more clout if we come through the security group.
I agree, and that, it seems to me the security group, as part of the, I don't know, the revision of the post orders, ought to have something in there about the guards recording those.
Absolutely, and
those
notifying.
trucks that are
Build a history, build a case.
improperly using the front gate.
If they did not register coming in the front gate, then you should have a record to say, that's illegal for them to exit, and then we can alert WCI.
Yeah, I mean, do the guards generally know that they're construction trucks?
You know, most of those guards are concentrating looking this way
Yeah.
on incoming traffic, so by the time
Yeah.
they see them, if they're not standing out there or see them when they're exiting or already
Yeah.
pulling out, it's hard for them to see the oncoming from the exit
Do
side.
we have cameras looking out? I know we have cameras for the cars coming in, but do we have,
There's an exit
That's the
camera.
one that was switched, I
We
believe.
used to have one.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
We used to.
perhaps we
And then
need,
somebody thought they were being spied on. I believe that camera
Well-
was moved.
Sarah, you had a
Can I
comment
make
on?
a suggestion as well? With this new speed sign that you have purchased that has the ability to take pictures, perhaps allocating time in Solaro or Matarita to capture those speeders, which are the construction workers, we can get an actual picture of them, and that's solid proof right there.
Yeah, that helps.
Good idea.
Good idea. Gail?
When Mary Beth was here, she told us that if we took down their license plate number and/or the name of the company, turned them in, WCI would not allow them back on
Right.
the property. I mean, that was a law or a rule then.
That is correct.
and that's what we're
Why has it
discussing.
changed?
It has,
Well, we
well,
don't know it
hasn't,
hasn't, but nobody's enforcing.
but nobody's making the community at large aware that there's a protocol for, and
And I-
Bob is suggesting that the protocol be the security committee.
Yeah, let them put out a note to everybody reminding them of this practice and kind of formalize it. I
Yeah.
think we'd have clout then.
Yeah, and I might remind you that item 4 on Ron's report, it says we were writing our first community correspondence to be published as an email that would go out to the entire community from the Master Association that addresses safety and security issues. This would not be a monthly email, but only when there was something significant to report to the community. Well, that's exactly where that could be done. Okay.
So, Trudy, do you have all that down for,
I think I do, actually.
Good. Good.
I'll tell them not to shoot the messenger.
We'll teach them not to show up.
And I won't give my phone number.
All right. Anything else, any other questions or comments for Dan?
I have one other security related. if we
Yes,
can.
yeah.
That's more to Sarah. For the last couple of years, I've heard that the fourth quarter is when the traffic light's gonna be installed at Pelican Reserve Boulevard and Tree Line. Do you have any knowledge of that or an update?
She reported on this morning.
Which year, Bob?
Yes, we discussed it this morning. My most recent update was from WCI, was that they were bidding out the project, and they're also having to work with FPL to install a transformer to service that, and that's where they're stuck. with the process, pushing it through FPL. And I made a comment just because Trieste has had some, had their light poles painted, and it took FPL 6 to 8 months to coordinate that. So the light at the front of the community is expected to take a little bit longer. So I do not expect that it'll be done fourth quarter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So FP&L paints the poles when they get a complaint?
No.
No.
Oh.
But they would only let her use a vendor that they approved and a color they approved, and she had to go through all kinds of hoops to get it done, so, for the community to do.
Neighborhoods paint them, and they
Yeah.
have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But they need FPL's approval to do that.
Okay, I can shortcut that process, but.
Spray paint.
Okay.
We'll visit you in jail.
Any-
I live there.
Any other safety and security work group comments, questions? Trudy, anything else that you need to tell us?
I don't believe so, thank you.
Okay.
We're very busy.
All right. Okay.
I do have one side comment, a little humor. FP&L is very, very slow in responding on everything but their bill. Speaking on aeration, the minute we didn't have a billable number, they turned them off. Believe me, I mean, within hours, they turned them off, as Sarah well knows. So they can be responsive when they need to be.
Well, and I found that if you talk to the right person in FP&L, you can get something done. We got more poles put on our street, more light poles put in, by finally ferreting around and finding the right person to talk to. And boy, once we started that process, they were in lickety split.
You know, it's funny.
Who was that person?
You have 1,000
It's important that
no's.
we know that.
You get 1,000 no's with these kind of requests, and you only have to have one yes.
That's right.
You just gotta find the right person. The person that says yes.
Yeah, we stopped as soon as we got.
You're right. As soon as you got the answer you wanted, right, you stop. Right?
Yeah.
It was also advised if you wanted more frequent updates regarding the light pole the traffic pole, is that Barry Ernst is the one that's commanding that project.
Sarah, you are next up if you have anything to report.
I don't necessarily have anything to report, I just have a question, if I could. I'm not sure how this was done in the past, but if you have a CDD right-of-way that wants to change their landscape design, they would have to go through design review approval. Was that something that you reviewed as well to approve that? And second part to that question is, was that funded through the CDD, or would that be the responsibility of that HOA?
HOA.
HOA.
It's never been here.
Yeah, never been.
Okay.
Our province is landscaping for community landscaping, not individual HOAs. Security, ponds, and wetlands.
If somebody
But
wants.
it's
the
a
right-of-way
CDD
is a
right
CDD
away.
If
asset.
somebody wants to
With
build,
landscaping in it.
if somebody wants to
Excuse me.
build into an easement, for instance, yeah, they'd have to come here and get approval.
Okay.
Not to us, but to the CDD. I've seen that
But they
both
would
in
probably
Gateway.
come through us, right?
Over there.
They would first have to go to the Architectural Review Committee through the Master Association. And then they would submit it to us.
Yeah, I didn't hear that as the CDD word, sorry.
So it does come to you after it's approved at the master?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but-
That's for encroachments.
Okay, just for
Encroachments,
encroachments,
yeah.
okay.
I
Okay,
mean, encroachments, I don't think we care about landscaping.
okay. Thank
As
you for
long as it's not
clarification.
on design, any of our easements.
Okay.
I mean,
One
I
of
mean,
my
I maybe I
former
missed it, what do you, landscaping where? Within the right of way?
In a cul-de-sac, in the right of way, they wanna
Oh, the island?
the island, yes.
Oh, the island.
They wanna re-landscape their island.
Who
And
does? The
CDD
association?
The neighborhood association.
Toscana,
Yeah, why would we care? I mean,
Well, I should.
Well-
Well, it's CDD property.
right.
That's part of the.
Toscana had to come in front of the CDD to have the electric put in there, in that thing. So I would imagine
Yeah,
they
right.
might have to
Yes,
come
and,
forward.
and as I recall it, we had some, as a matter of fact, we did it, had some plantings done in the island in our cul-de-sac in Trentino, by the neighborhood, and we came through and asked for a review by the design committee, and it came through and we were approved, I believe, by the CDD.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because the property belongs to the CDD, and I.
Yes.
Yeah, I think actually,
I think
at the
it
end
Well,
of the
John,
day-
in our
the end of the day, yes.
asset group, who's that listed under?
It's CDD.
Yeah.
But in Portofino, we do all the maintenance in the cul-de-sac.
Well, we elected in Portofino.
But I'm saying, now this would be before I was on.
Yeah,
Did they
what
go
would-
through the CDD to do that?
It came,
Did I open up a can?
yeah, that came through here. And the choice was, when we were looking at the contract to do the whole community, it was Portofino and maybe Bellagio, somebody else wanted to take care of mowing and trimming and pruning their own,
We're not getting reimbursed.
no,
No.
no.
I've asked, can we?
No,
No.
no, but we elected to drop out of the big contract with, say, I guess Ameriscapes, at the time. We could probably elect to let Ameriscapes do it and take it out of our contract in the community.
No, I think it's better,
The way
from
it
the
is.
community standpoint, to keep it, if it's budgeted, leave it alone.
But-
From our standpoint, I think it's better, that's a community thing, that's an HOA.
But the history was, yeah, that did come up here and it was discussed that.
Okay, so it
that-
should be discussed then.
Yeah, that communities could opt out of the general contract for those islands for landscaping.
Without having any knowledge of this in fact, but I would think if Toscano's doing anything, they're thinning it, as it is really overgrown.
I don't know. Scott?
They are putting it.
Well, if I may, if in the asset agreement for maintenance, I need to look at the particular neighborhood and things, but I believe the landscaping, even though it's within the CDD ownership, the responsibility for the maintenance has gone back to the master association.
Correct, we maintain it.
Right.
But that was the question is, do you have to approve architectural changes? If somebody wanted to go and rip out all their landscaping, would that be something the CBD would approve? You know, so I needed the clarification. I don't know what the process is.
I don't know either. My 2 years, I haven't run into that.
I mean, my feeling is if you go on somebody else's property, you just don't go in there and dig things up.
Oh, I agree. I mean, submit it, we might, I don't know.
It seems to me that.
Try not to slow down the wheels of progress, folks.
But
It needs to come
it's-
to somebody, but.
It seems to me the submission should be, as you said before, it should go through the design review committee at the master and then
Yeah, good.
to the CDD.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
And I would assume in that particular case, if it involves Pelican Preserve, that Scott would present that to us and we would make a recommendation to the CDD.
That may hold
And then it would
up.
come back, so, I mean,
What?
it's like a ping pong ball, but, okay.
What we. you say-
Why wouldn't it come from the master HOA to the P-PAC and then P-PAC make a recommendation?
That's
to
what I
the-
said. That's
Oh,
what
I
I'm
thought you
saying.
said came to me first,
No.
then
No,
to you,
no,
then
no,
back.
well, if it comes to you and you, you as the
Or
staff
Diane,
to
or
present
somebody
it,
to-
staff or Diane or
To
whoever it
include
is.
with P-PAC, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
when we.
So it
when-
could be a prolonged process, because we'd have to wait till the next meeting a month later, potentially. Like if I receive this today, and they're wanting to get.
When we
approval.
sealed our street,
Don't go there.
why?
Don't go there yet.
When we sealed our street,
What product did you use, sir?
we came directly to the CDD and asked
Yes.
permission to do it.
As did we.
As
Yeah.
did we.
Right.
Yeah.
Just come right to this
And
room.
then we have that community that didn't ask anybody the first time.
We just did it.
it.
It's all right.
I know.
It's far better to ask for permission, for forgiveness.
You take out any oak trees, Bob?
Not yet, but we're thinking
Oh,
about
we've gotta take out.
Oh.
it. We are starting
A
to
lot of,
clock
that's
like big
paperwork
time.
involved, Bob.
No, they're right.
Let me give you a report on that. But,
It's called Roundup.
Well, you didn't, you didn't, we need to give you an answer. That seems reasonable, and the problem is that if you're waiting on us, you could be waiting a month. And I think that's a,
Let me ask a question. Was Toscano one of the communities that opted out of the Master Association contract with Ameriscapes? So it's Ameriscapes that's doing their landscaping. I know Ameriscapes doing other communities' landscaping independently, but this is through the master. Okay.
I don't know, do we have any provision for provisional approval? I'm wondering whether they just, you couldn't bring it to me, and then I would provisionally approve it, because it can get awful wound around we can get wound around the axle, terribly wound around the axle here on this stuff. suggestions, I just, you know, I guess we shouldn't have people doing things on our property without our
Well-
approval. And,
Well, we could, do you know exactly what they're proposing to do?
Yes, I have the application.
What are they saying they're gonna do?
They're wanting to thin out, I can provide, they're wanting to thin out,
Just did it.
they're overgrown, and replace some plantings with, sod.
Okay, now that sounds to me like routine maintenance, that does not sound
Well, they're
like a-
going to, their design now is this, and they're wanting to remove out the entire first section.
They're doing what now?
You know what I think we need is like have the CDD itself.
Sit and
You-
look at all of these, yeah.
No, not look at them at all. Just give blanket permission to the HOA,
To make the
to
decision.
you, to make a
The
decision.
HOA has to live there.
Yeah, right.
yeah, okay, so should we recommend that to
Yes,
the
yes.
CDD?
Yeah, yeah. Let's keep it as simple
We have
as
to
we
be
can.
Excellent
careful.
idea.
Well, wait a minute,
Oh.
we have to be careful what we're talking, be
Talking
very
about.
specific, because
Yeah.
otherwise you've got another character like I had in my neighborhood that went out to the easement and put up all kinds of palm trees and
The gunsmith?
the gunsmith, yeah.
Well, I mean, but it seems to me that's the HOA's responsibility.
Yeah, but they didn't
No.
handle it.
Now, that was.
No.
you're
They were
talking-
afraid of them.
You're
Well, I
talking an
understand- I
easement, she's
understand.
not talking an easement, she's talking a cul-de-sac,
Well,
right?
it's the same thing.
So,
No, the easements are different in a way, because an easement has a right of way for
Right.
traffic. A cul-de-sac is not. It's
But
just,
the
it's an
point
asset
was-
owned by.
But the point was,
land-
John,
it's-
the
it could be a
HOA wouldn't step
landscape
up to it.
What, I understand the HOA wouldn't step up to it, but even if we'd had some kind of an approval process, that wouldn't have made any difference
I agree with
anyway,
that, too.
In that particular case, I mean, that was.
That's right.
I think we have to assume that that was a fairly unique case.
That's a head case.
Huh? It was a head case, yes, it was, as well as a unique case.
And I do sort of bring this up just because also there's been discussion about people wanting to, like Carina, they have a third entrance. The residents have gone to their board and asked to put in a third monument, which WCI is not going to do. And so then they started asking, well, then can we just go put it in ourselves? And I was like, well, that's a CDD asset, that will be a CDD asset. So, I mean, so we're gonna have some potential design things coming your way. So a process would be great.
yeah, I think we need to think this through a little bit
Yeah.
before we just do a blanket.
Never mind, I won't support you.
Um,
I was with you there. I thought it was a good idea.
I did too.
For a
You
while.
wanna
I
make a
was with-
motion? I'll make
I
a
was with
motion.
you for a while.
Well.
No, Nancy does
Oh.
raise some valid points. We gotta.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I move that we request that the CDD grant the Master Association approval powers for any modification, any landscaping modifications of islands within neighborhoods,
Landscaping modification to monuments and islands.
monuments and islands.
Only, nothing else. I'll second that.
Second? Discussion. Do we think we're getting on dangerous ground here?
Sounds like that's low risk.
I'd
Yeah.
say so.
For now, we could change it
Yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah. Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did someone second it?
Yes.
Yes, Bob seconded it.
Sorry.
Um,
Can you repeat it? I'm not as fast as Diane.
Don't we record these?
I am, but I'm just,
There's-
I don't wanna get her mad at me.
You think I can remember what I said?
That the CDD grant the modifications of.
No, we,
Landscape modification.
We request that the
monuments
CDD
and cul-de-sacs.
landscaping modifications.
Okay, just landscaping only.
Landscaping.
On monuments and
Monuments and-
islands.
For
Monuments and islands.
Only.
Only. And such things as,
You call
Sarah,
monuments
that
or
you
cul-de-sacs.
brought up about a monument, that can wait for a month.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, we can, that's gotta be, that's a more.
That would have to go through the CDD for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
I think it's kind of an engineering issue too.
But the landscaping is another issue.
Hmm?
Landscaping is not, it's not a
Right,
problem.
that's-
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have Sarah, in our package here, there are a couple of proposals that I must admit, now maybe they are part of the whole Indian Hawthorne thing, but a proposal to remove and replace dead, dying flax lily at the entrance to the Valentina community. Was that already approved?
Yes, it was discussed, I wasn't sure the process of how those were been approved in the past, and it was discussed at the last meeting that as long as it's budgeted and it's then done.
Oh, yes,
we'll
okay,
actually
that's
move on
fine.
that.
So these are ones that were budgeted.
Yes.
These are not being brought up, okay. I'm with you on that. Okay, anything else, Sarah, to report?
Nope.
Mr. Geppert, you're on.
Okay, I got a couple things. First of all, I'm very happy to tell you we have a new numbering system for some of our ponds. In my brief tenure, I think this is numbering system 3 or 4.
3, I think, maybe 4.
Yeah, it keeps growing. But anyway,
Do
we
we
have
start
some
on,
new numbers.
do we start at 1, Bob?
Beg your
Do
pardon?
we start at 1?
As a matter of fact, we do, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. And it has a PP, meaning 1 in Pelican Preserve, as compared to Gateway, or Stony Brook, or Hampton Park, or, so there's a method to the madness. To that end, this is the latest edition. I know you can't all see it, but just be aware, we now have them designated as the Pelican Ponds Group Maps, our work group maps. This company is called GIS. They work for the district. Ponds Work Group went to the district, being Scott, and then to Tetra Tech, and we are trying to build a master database that'll tell anyone anything about the lakes or the ponds in Pelican Preserve. So to get to that end, we're going to start with a map like this, because it's already in existence, and we're going to have overlays, if you will, like the old days of the flimsies, where you put a flimsy on top of it, and one will tell us the flow of the water, another one might tell us every place we have a pipe going from in or out. Another one's going to identify where we have fish gates. Another layer will have aeration. And so if you went to this website, you could tell everything that was going on in our ponds in Pelican Reserve. Now, the detail, the devil's in the detail. The detail will also tell you the development order that provided for this lake to be put here, the ownership questions, so we know exactly who owns it, the maintenance questions, so you know who's maintaining it, the entire cost structure for a particular pond. When have you done repair work? When have you done cleaning? When did you install aeration? When did you stock? Everything that we have done to all of our ponds. We are going to include all the bathymetrics. So if you want to know what's your shelf, your depth, your volume of water, all of that will be in here. We currently have probably 6 water quality reports per year that we get. We don't get it from every pond, but we have a representative sample that says what's coming into us, what do we do to it, and what does it do when it leaves us. So we're going to have that history on here. We have visits by either our service provider, Aquagenics, or by the state, or by South Florida. So if we get any written reports, that will be part of our database. We also have hundreds of videos of every pipe in the community. So those will be available to any resident or anybody who wants to ever go see it. Last but not least, we are also having all the budgetary issues. So we have a budget that we put out every year, and any resident that wants to go see how much money do we allocate and what do we do, it's all going to be there, folks. So we have interviewed GIS, we being Ponds. We had a second interview Saturday, and that vendor didn't show up. And there is a third company out there that Rod Senior is pushing, so we are going to interview those people too. We expect this will probably cost us, when we're all said and done, upwards of $20,000. But to have the history and the data as we roll forward, so when the Geppert dies and Jan's moved and all, whoever comes in our footsteps will have a good path and know everything we're done.
Sounds like a massive undertaking.
It
I'm surprised
is.
you could get it done for $20,000.
But we've got, well, an awful lot of it's already been started. If we
Yeah.
go with GIS, we have already paid for a big chunk of this. So then the rest of it is just data input type of thing.
Yeah, once you get it done, it's
Yeah.
easy after that.
Oh, yes. I
And
know
we
that.
have a number
We're
of
just getting all-
residents.
Just
Getting all that information.
accumulating all that information so you can input it.
We have a number of residents that have had some expertise in this area, and we're meeting with them too to keep the Ponds Group, because this isn't our bag. This would fall more like something that Paul would do, but to keep us asking the right questions to get the right cost. But we're excited about it because we think it's a good thing to do for the community. Okay,
Hey, Bob?
Yes.
One question. With regard to the piping,
yes,
have you geolocated where all those pipes are located?
yes.
Okay,
That's how we found the ones that went under Town Center
okay.
and things like that. As a matter of fact, I wasn't on their meeting today, but I have a meeting with Joe Smith week after next, because they are now interested in the deficient pipe underneath the Town Center homes.
Imagine that.
They finally gonna get there. So he has budgeted money, don't know how much, in the 2016 calendar year. So now he wants to know where his problem is. So that's progress. I mean, that's
Is the solution there something like we had?
exactly the same. They gotta
in
fill
Aviano, they
it,
have
fill
to
it with
fill
hydraulic cement and then run a new line.
Yeah.
The other thing that he's very interested in is the standing water problems all over the Town Center, tennis courts and other areas. And I had to tell him that as a ponds work group, we didn't do a lot of work on his area. When we were paying to have all of our pipes checked out, we specifically excluded Town Center areas and the golf course. They may have a ton of problems, but we didn't pay any money to check that. But we know what we did, we're gonna share that with them, but there's still a whole bunch more that they're gonna have to do, and they'll probably have to spend some money to finally do that. Aeration, I'm happy to report that it's going almost flawlessly. The installations that are in are functioning very well. We're not getting very many complaints, other than somebody that doesn't have it yet. But the people that have it are reasonably happy. We've had some minor things with, once we lowered the pedestals for the meters, that took care of the majority of the complaints. We have had requests for some shrubbery, for some sod replacement, some minor things. But all in all, we're very encouraged with the way it's going. The one fly in the ointment I alluded to earlier was keeping them running. FP&L is very quick to turn them off, but we're sorting those through one at a time. There's a lot of meters involved in this, folks, and it's going to take it's an accounting kind of a nightmare at first. I'm sure it'll be much less once we get up and running.
How about the sound problem?
That has been a non-issue.
Non-issue, okay.
No, were you there? You and I took Worley over
Oh, yeah.
to listen to.
No, but I had sent you an email about somebody in my community who was kind of complaining about the.
I got that email, but I'm trying to remember what I think.
What
I think Henry went and Brent
I had
went.
asked that somebody go over.
Yeah,
and
and I don't remember who got that assignment, but somebody's going to do that with it.
Hank is, Worley is okay.
I wouldn't go that far, but he's quiet.
Well, I had asked him just a week ago, and he seemed okay.
Well, too many times in the past with prior conversations, I left with the impression with everything okay, only to come home 3 days later and get another nasty letter. So I don't really know. I mean,
Yeah.
but I did know he went and solicited
Mm-hmm, he did.
to get people to put the kibosh on it, and I think that fizzled
Yeah, it did.
because I haven't heard any more about it.
Yeah, the neighbors basically said they weren't interested in getting involved in it.
So anyway,
But the one comment I would make is, I was home when they were, it was much more elaborate procedure than I thought, because it wasn't just Worley's house. It was one neighbor to the left of his house.
Correct.
And then the neighbor to the
under
right.
Worley's and then to the
fully-
next person, right?
Carol Brocky's
And
was
then it-
involved. too.
No, never got to Carol's
Yeah,
house.
well, yeah, Carol's place, my place, and Dilowitz's, because they were not digging,
Boring.
but they were fooling around with our water, they were doing all kinds of stuff back there.
That's,
And
I'm trying to look into that with, working with Carol Brocky, and her irrigation and everything has been fixed. And I talked to Bob on that.
And
Yeah.
I don't know whether mine's been, what they did to mine, if anything, but it was Brocky's, mine, and Bilowitz's.
Yeah,
And-
the irrigation is fixed.
Yeah, and everything that was done specifically with Carol's was all from an underground boring point of view.
Right,
There was no construction on her property, that's what I always mean. The only
Yeah.
one that got construction was the people next to Worley and then up on the golf course.
but if you happened to be home as I came home in the middle of the boring the first day, it sounds like a huge earthquake going on.
I haven't seen that yet, I haven't been there.
That part, I mean, I knew what was going on, so I knew it was happening, but, that's not quiet for anybody that's surrounding it. So when you're talking to neighbors, it'll be a day or two of a lot of,
Well, I'll share that with the next group,
A
because
lot
I
of-
wasn't aware of that.
yeah,
I missed the first 9 installations.
And they gotta be aware, not
Yeah, that it's
causing
going to be.
irrigation problems.
And-
But
yeah.
everything that they have damaged, they being TSI and the umbrella companies, they've stepped right up and fixed it. I know Carol Hatch had an astronomical water bill
Yeah.
because she unfortunately turned off the water to her home and then turned on all her faucets. For whatever reason, I guess that does something. So the contractor went and needed water, so they turned water to the home on, used their hose, and then
Left
turned
it
the
on.
hose off, not realizing everything in the house was running full tilt.
Yeah.
So there was a huge bill, but they went and paid it.
They paid it.
They stepped right up and said, yeah, we did turn water on. We've had some other issues with billing going to, who did I go to? Robin Kessler. And she complained that she got this really, really big bill, so I thanked her for paying it and said we'd get her a thank you card, but we actually took care of that because that didn't fly with rain. Because we've had a couple of little blurps here and
Probably
there.
can fly with Robin real well.
But no, Robin was she was very nice about it. But anyway, we're making good, steady progress. We expect to be done within a month. The whole community will be done within a month. So that's very, very good news. Future years, next steps, is we purposely didn't do the ponds that had fountains, like around the town center area. So we will eventually, we're gonna go back and do them and do whatever we need to do out in the new communities once they become turned over. And that is anybody's guess whenever we're gonna get them. I'm tired of guessing that anymore. Okay, next steps. We've got two big projects that are getting ready to start. The first is erosion. We are working on ponds 28, which is Seville, behind Seville, out on, and Verano. And we're also gonna work on pond 20, which is behind, I guess, Portofino. And we're restoring the banks and we're gonna put in Armor-Max. And we had a meeting with the residents this past week. We walked around, we had the supplier there that's gonna do the work, because it's gonna be pretty disruptive to some people in Sevilla. And if you can imagine, we've got a 18-foot bank that will end up being probably 26 foot as we fill the lake in of the pond and then restore the 4-to-1 or as close to it as is practical because some of those condos, the carriage homes back there.
I
are
thought
getting
Pond 20.
Close.
Is it the old Pond 20?
Yeah, that didn't take, Pond 20 still was.
Pond, okay.
And that
Was
is the one-
Bellagio?
That is between Bellagio and Ventino Drive. So it's, right up from the golf course.
Right,
So
okay,
Bellagio
you're right,
going to
okay,
town
right,
center.
okay.
So if you can picture,
That's what I
as
thought.
you turn that corner,
That's
there's
the
first couple
smaller
homes.
pond that, yeah.
Yeah, it's about 5 or 6 homes there, and if you
You're
ever
right.
walk it, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, there's one corner that's particularly bad.
Yeah, we have 2 things we're doing there. We're also putting it in washout, and that's the next thing I was gonna talk about, but, we're gonna spend about $100,000 on this bank restoration. It's guaranteed forever. It's been a long time coming. We had to get surveys, permits, competitive bids. But this will be our next, effort, and it should take place this quarter. Then the next thing we're doing are washouts. The difference between a pond bank restoration is that's when you do a solid area versus the washouts are where you have a specific problem, either with runoff coming between homes, broken drainage pipes, whatever. And we've got 4 of those that are taking place. Contractor's been selected, and we've been waiting till the rainy season was over, and he's now set to start. So that'll be Pond 9, Pond 10, a portion of 20, and 33. 33 is in Valentina. The next thing, we are installing staff gauges in 4 ponds initially. And this will tell you that at a 0 point, that's the high water mark of what a pond's supposed to be, the absolute upper setting. And then you can see what your rise and fall is over a course of time, whether it's a year, 2 years. The purpose of something like this is historical records, so you know, but also if you start climbing above a certain level, then you know you got a blockage somewhere, so it's a cork in the bottle. So we're putting those in. We are also putting.
That's a good idea.
Well, we bounce these things around, and every now and then we come up with a good one. The next problem we as a group have had since day one has been trying to confine our littoral zones. when you're looking at a pond in low water season, the zone might be 6 feet. When you look at that same area in high water, and you're looking from grass out, it looks like it's 12 or 14 feet. The littorals don't really change, but it's the water level that gives you the perception of change. So what we're going to do, we have on Pond 10, which is on Trieste, is going to be our pilot. And the best way to describe it is if the lake bank goes from Scott to me, we're going to put a stick in the water where Scott's left shoulder is, and a stick in the water here. And if you would picture like a thin fishing line coming between us, we're going to say to our contractor, this being the littorals, this being the water, don't let any littoral go past this imaginary line. And this community has been one of the ones that's more vocal because it's a shallow lake, and they want to make sure that they don't lose their water view due to littorals. So it makes perfect sense. And you can't tell a contractor to do it all based on the shoreline. He needs to put a boat in the water and maintain it. So this is going to be our first attempt at that, and I'll keep you posted at how it goes.
There was a discussion in the president's meeting this morning about, mainly about cattails.
Yes.
And what a problem that they present.
We have some significant problems in the new ponds. And I have been working with lake masters who WCI has hired to do those. And they are very amenable to doing whatever we're telling that's within reason. The problem is WCI pays them. And when I contact WCI, I hear all the right words, we're going to do it, but it never gets communicated back to this provider. Coupled with the fact that we found out when we looked at all of our ponds, neither CDD nor WCI was paying for some of those ponds. Some of them were not being maintained. So we're trying to address that. So that was a surprise to us. We thought that when they built a new pond, it automatically went to Lake Masters and that they were doing it, but that's not been the case in the Carina neighborhood. So if you go behind some of those homes there, it's terrible. And I've told the residents that the minute we take over, we'll fix it. And we're trying to get it taken care of before that.
I met with Henry, I believe it was?
Yes, he's in the
Earlier.
ponds group, right?
Yeah.
Chivera.
Last week.
Henry Chavera.
Right, and we looked at a couple of the ponds in Carina and got a hold of WCI, and they acknowledged that they'll start treating that.
Two of them that were specifically omitted from the contracts. Yeah. So we have become more and more active in the Carina neighborhood simply because we just don't want this thing to build up to be too big. I don't know how many of you know a woman by the name of DeVita. First name I think is Paula, and she floods every time it rains. And WCI has given us all kinds of, we're going to fix that, we're going to change the filters, we're going to clean this out, we're going to, every weekend we're going to put new sandbags in, yada, yada, yada. The bottom line, when it rains, she floods all the way up to her driveway. So we did take our inspection service, Morris Riley, and we had them put a camera out there, and they did determine that there is a blockage, but unfortunately the water was so turbid we couldn't see it. We know the probe wouldn't go through, so something stopped it, but we couldn't get a good clear picture because the water was too murky. As soon as the water clears, we're going to do it again. And we're going to take that, then go to WCI, and hopefully they're going to fix this issue. They have been very cooperative. When you lead the horse to enough water, they will respond, but it's very difficult to get them to acknowledge a problem.
Where do you stand with coercing WCI to put gutters on new construction?
We don't really have much of a leg to stand on. We've been with Tony Perez, and whatever their permit was is what they were following, but there is no Lee County standard or anything else to make them do it. So our posture is going to be, and we're having an all-employee meeting in January. I forgot to mention that, but we're working with HOA right now to see who is inspecting their pipes, who has pipes. I'm talking about rain spouts, and we're going to try and encourage the new areas to either budget money to do it, change their covenants to do it, because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, that came up at the president's meeting.
But it's got to be voluntary right now.
All right, at this point, the blockage from, let's say, a street or a home or the bubbler to the lake, you've determined if there's blockage, is that correct?
We can determine, yes. You have to you inspect it is what you do.
But has it been done to most of the communities?
It's been done in Verona, and it's been done in Trentino Estates. Those two communities for sure, and Sevilla, they've done it. But it's a community by community. How active is that community president?
How are the HOAs accepting that responsibility to get involved with that?
Well, we have we have a standard of what we're gonna propose to them, but we're looking for voluntary compliance. There is no clout behind, this is the right thing to do, and you should do it. The way we are getting involved is in our inspections and when we see washout conditions that are directly related to downspout problems. We're gonna fix them once. And then we're gonna tell the HOA, here's the problem, this is what we recommend you do. We're fixing this.
Okay, so you are gonna do it one
But
time.
if
and
it
then-
occurs again, then it's on you if you're not, checking these every year.
Okay, is that the standard
Under-
you're
under-
working
This
with?
is the standard.
Under what authority can you go on somebody's property and make those measurements?
We go in the easement area only.
Okay, just check that side of it.
That's right, we're only going in the easement. Where the erosion is occurring in our easement is where
can
we're
take a
taking
look.
action.
Okay.
And we're encouraging then the HOA and the homeowners to step up to their
Okay,
portion.
my other
of
question
this.
is, what authority does the homeowners association, I can understand condos, it's not a problem there, but what authority does the homeowners association have to go inspect somebody's downspout? None.
Probably none, that's right.
None.
Except that a lot of homeowners paint their houses, they clean their roofs, and we're trying to approach this as, this is another good sense thing you should do. Can't make
Yeah, I
it.
guess that's, we
Can't make them.
You sort of have to self-inspect.
But it's in
When we find
everybody's-
a problem, write a letter.
Homeowners do, you're gonna.
It's
if you
in
walk your house,
everybody's
you're gonna
best
get
interest.
floods.
We hope that they're gonna get,
Yeah.
we get really great cooperation.
Could I get a
Pelican.
copy of that?
Sure.
For our HOA?
Yeah, we get great cooperation,
Mm-hmm.
at least from a pond's perspective. We haven't had anybody really fight us on it.
And the fact that you're willing to do it once and then, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
So, yeah, I'll give you a copy before we leave. Now, the fly in the ointment, again, the new communities are, in all of our homes, because we all have the old stuff, the rain spouts come down, go into an easement, the ground gradually falls into the pond, and the water's flowed, in most cases, under that easement area into the pond. In the new communities, the ground comes like this, it dips, and then there's a big hump, and then it goes to the water. And by design, WCI is now channeling the water from the home to this little swale. They want it to puddle up. There's, I call it a mosquito breeding ground. And that's what they're designed to do, and it's legal. So I don't know what kind of problems we're gonna have trying to encourage people then to go from that part out into the pond. But they're not gonna like it. Go ahead, Scott.
I was thinking that, I know it's more pronounced along the flowway, can't we, because we can't discharge direct into the flowways. I didn't know they were doing that on the other
But we do
ponds.
discharge directly into the flowways in all of our,
But, yeah,
older
we
communities.
direct, but not right off the yards, not off the sheet
Yeah.
flow from the backyards.
yeah,
Yeah?
in the older,
Oh, the older, but the newer.
not in the newer.
Yeah, okay.
They changed that, they changed their whole design. Because we first saw it, what in the world are they doing? They're building a bathtub. And yeah, that's what they
And
want to do.
what's their reason for doing it?
Because they're allowed. It's a lot cheaper for them to do this than put in all the pipework and stuff. So we're looking for, the short answer is we're gonna look for voluntary compliance. And that's all I have.
Any other questions of Bob?
Probably January 13th, but I haven't confirmed it with Terry yet.
You're gonna have
All employee meeting.
an all.
I actually want to talk
all
to Carol
hands.
Brocky
All residents meet.
and,
All-
yeah, all
all
employee, back to work.
Well, she's having her meeting on the 19th.
I want to see when it is and make sure we
12th.
dovetail and, you
I
know.
think it's the 12th.
We might even do one and the same, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the-
I haven't
it's the
talked to
12th.
Carol
It's
yet.
the 12th, yeah. I think Carol's meeting's the 12th.
Okay, and maybe we'll just try and
John,
let
you're
you on
on.
that.
Okay, in your packet, I did write a report on the asset meeting that I had with Scott and Tony, which I think went extremely well. Tony has received from WCI a copy of their version of the proposed new maintenance agreement, and he had some serious questions. He was hoping to make some changes before our meeting today, and rather than go through all of them, there's a couple points that he had made. He has some questions on the new Exhibit B, which we like, in regards to who has maintenance, who's the future maintenance, et cetera. He wants to sort of revise that a little bit. I won't get into detail with that. But I think his comments have to do from a legal standpoint and from a maintenance standpoint. So we are progressing. Unless anybody has any specific questions, there were a couple things that Tony did not like about what WCI did in regards to his original version of the new maintenance agreement. But we'll see how it comes out. I think it's progressing. And Scott is also working on a map, which he just gave me. Now, this is just a version for all of us to get through, but I think it's an excellent step compared to what WCI was going to use as a sales map only in terms of being attached to the maintenance agreement. Any questions?
Sure, that was Bob.
I had a question with Dave Caldwell about the
Number 33. on-
landscaping areas, and specifically it was driven by the boardwalk and the path around it.
And that is being looked into.
And I gave Scott a copy of the letter. Tony's got it. When Caldwell read it, it looked like it was new information to him. He wasn't, I had the sense that he wasn't aware of that. Barry Ernst wrote the letter in 2011.
What's the issue?
This is when Sevilla got into the preserve area
Oh, yeah.
and cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And then there was a fine assessed
Right.
because of that. At the time that Sevilla went into the area, we, PPAC, was maintaining the preserves. And as a direct result of that event, WCI took that back.
Yeah.
Our contractor was Aquagenics at that point, and they stopped working in there. And I believe it went back to Woods and Wetlands under WCI. But we all know this occurred, but what was the instrument under which it happened? Other than the Barry Ernst letter, that's the only thing we have. So,
That we stopped, yeah, and the reason behind that was that WCI had to maintain the preserves for X
Number
period
of-
of time.
yes.
And then they hired that young guy to come in and be the one who was supposed to be overseeing it, and then he left, and then they hired somebody else, and he left. I have no idea who's.
yeah, I don't even know who's doing it anymore. But it got very, very muddy for a while, and we had budgeted money, we had been paying Aquagenics, we stopped doing that, we stopped paying them. And WCI's been doing it ever since, and now we're into our 4th year of them doing it. But the question that drove all this was John's assets group and going back to we used to have the preserve, we don't have the preserve, so therefore we took the boardwalk, and we still continue to do the boardwalk. But I tried to get some clarification on it as to how it went back to them and when are they gonna give it to us. And it's tied up with permits and things, but right
Yeah.
now they're still doing it.
It's some sign off by South Florida Water Management before they can actually even
Yeah.
consider turning it over.
And I
to
have
the
no
district.
idea when and if they're gonna do it, but it's in Never Never Land still. But at least now everybody's got copies of the documents that caused us to turn off Aquagenics.
Sarah?
I just had a follow-up question. So the preserve's still owned by WCI now, currently hopefully being maintained by WCI. The boardwalk itself?
Should
They
still
said was
be,
CDD.
by humble opinion, it should still be with WCI. When we were managing the preserves for that brief window of time, we determined, PPAC, that we wanted to clean the boardwalk, and we budgeted money to do that. When the preserves were taken away from us by WCI, we didn't recognize that and say, okay, we're not gonna clean the boardwalk anymore. We've just rolled right along still doing it. It's probably a good decision, because it's more than likely cheaper for us to do it, because the PO comes out of the CDD, you don't pay sales tax, whereas if the HOA did it, they'd have to pay tax. But that's how we got involved in it. But technically, I don't think that we're responsible for doing it.
Now, you sent something saying that we were, and Tony reviewed something.
Yeah.
It's
Where
not
are
clear.
we?
The was from like 2003 or something.
2001.
But then. you
Well, that's
say
the bill,
2011,
that's right.
There was a letter sent. I don't know if that just stops the.
I don't know
That was
either.
done, or, you know. if
It
it
has
was to
been
be-
murky ever since, sir. I really don't know.
I guess my concern is because what, you know, right now,
We didn't.
worry about safety in the boardwalk, and I worry about the structure and, you know, the structural integrity of the boardwalk. And, you know, we have a maintenance technician that goes out and replaces boards as he sees needs to, but it really needs somebody that's engineered for that type of work to go out and be monitoring it closely, and
Well, I think we have that in our capital assets, though. Boardwalk replacement.
You know, I don't know that.
Remember we did the reserves?
When we did the reserves, did we?
I'm pretty sure that's in there.
I don't have it with me, I'm not sure. Is it, and do we have, I'm not even certain, do we have money in our budget for this year to do the work?
Yes,
We do.
yes.
there was a pressure cleaning last.
Every other year we do it.
We do have the pressure cleaning in there then.
Yes.
Yep.
But you're saying it's more than just the cleaning, it's the,
Yeah.
Well, we also typically budget for repairs to it too.
Correct. But not a full structural thing, that's what it
No,
was.
not a full
But that was,
replacement.
should be in our
And the asset.
capital assets.
Capital assets.
okay, we need to check that.
So, let me make sure I'm a little foggy.
I'm
I remember
very
talking with
foggy.
David, but, so the preserve, I forget the conservation area number right now, where the boardwalk is still owned by WCI,
Correct.
yes or no?
I don't know,
I
but
believe-
they're still maintaining it. I don't know who actually holds the deed. That was never our interest. The only thing we were involved in was the maintenance responsibility.
Well, there's maintenance of the aquatic system in there, as well as maintenance of the pathway and the boardwalk.
That was never delineated. It was,
Well, and there's
But that's the
also,
question,
well, there's more than that. It's also the thinning out or the removal of.
the alligator flag,
Yeah.
that's part of the
Yeah,
surface water management aquatic.
and that is
maintenance.
Conservation Area 06.
06, that's the number.
Well, my eyes aren't real good. It's either 5 or 6, I can't.
Yeah, and I believe it's 06, yeah.
Looks like a 6 to me, yes.
as far as I know, WCI was taking responsibility for the maintenance of.
They're
all
paying
those.
somebody to go in there and maintain it.
They are, but then the question is, my question is if they still own and are responsible for that conservation area 06, which encompasses not only the pond,
But the
the
boardwalk.
aquatics, the pathway,
The
the
asphalt pathway,
boardwalk,
all of it.
who is,
We've been maintaining.
we've been maintaining, we being Pelican Reserve, been maintaining it under
The
through the
maintenance
master
agreement.
HOA or through
Right.
the
Yeah.
exhibit,
Through here.
asset agreement?
The HOA.
The HOA's been maintaining it, so.
No, HOA
No.
don't.
The master.
No.
No.
No, we
We've
do.
been.
We've been
P-PAC.
allocating it all the time.
P-PAC.
Okay. All right.
Directly.
Because it came to us one time, somebody said, it's getting moldy, it's slippery, it's a safety hazard, needs to be cleaned. We voted
And
on it.
Tony
Clean.
said, we're not gonna get sued by Morgan and Morgan if somebody falls, and therefore,
Ah.
we will maintain
So he
it.
just went ahead and
That is-
maintained it.
But we had the area,
What
that
would
was
you
my
like-
whole
all right,
point.
I will look
I was
into
at
that.
the meeting.
Do we go through WCI, or do we try to get an official opinion through Tony?
I think Tony.
We're
would
long
be-
Well, he
past
was
getting
aware of it,
official.
because we brought it up at our
Yeah,
meeting.
We're long past trying to get an official position. We need that. We really should get it.
Get it done?
Yeah. Find out what's
Because
it
no
for.
matter
Who
who,
really-
it's gonna be paid for one way or the other. is what
Well,
I'm
we
saying.
as homeowners are gonna pay for it one way or the other, but that's a whole different
It's
question.
a Tony question.
Okay.
We ought to know firmly on a legal setting, is it ours or is it not?
Yet, yeah, I mean, it will be eventually.
Eventually it will be.
Okay, we understand that, they all will be.
And it's the bridges, the boardwalk, and the path. It's a one big package. This drawing doesn't show any of the pathways or the boardwalks.
Not on that scale.
It's not on this.
You can't see it on that scale.
Well, okay.
Okay. John, anything more?
No. Not on capital assets, any questions?
Any more questions of John on capital assets? Okay. Let me go to road turnover. I put this on the agenda. Um, The whole issue of, quote, taking over the roads, if you will, has been bubbling along. Paul Fish has done quite a bit of work on it. The CDD is interested in it, I can say. They have hired a lobbyist to go to the legislature because it appears that there might be a need to get the laws changed in order for us to take over the roads as, yes, for our master HOA to take over the roads, rather than, in other words, for the CDD to turn
Give
the
up.
roads over, CDD to turn the roads over to the HOA, so that we could own them as private roads. Now, there are two pieces to this thing, because we've got the roads in the old part of the community, which are covered by bonds that were issued by the CDD, and then you've got the roads in the Cypress Grove area, which are covered by financing received through WCI. There are a lot of moving parts in this thing. There are, and the involvement includes the CDD, WCI, the Florida legislature, possibly, and in fact, indeed, the HOA, the bond holders, if there's some movement to take the roads over or move the roads over from the CDD to the HOA. I think there are still some questions as to how you would do it, and whether it can be done without new legislation. Now, kind of layered on top of this is the whole question of the CDD, and whether it's possible that we would somehow extricate ourselves from the CDD, and how that might be done. This, as I say, there are a lot of moving parts. It's a complicated issue. And it seemed to us that one of the things we have to do is we have to get consensus within the community that it would make sense for us to do this, for the master to take over the roads. Now, there are two potential benefits. One of them, perhaps a slight financial benefit, because we wouldn't have the CDD overhead in managing that asset. And by the way, the other assets as well could be included in this effort. The other thing is just it would give us control of our own destiny, and would indeed allow us to turn these into private roads, and would help some of our security problems that we're concerned about. So there are lots of reasons to do this, and the feeling is that, of course, we have the problem that if we were to turn it over to immediately, which we couldn't possibly do, if the turnover was to happen immediately, it's being turned over to a board that is controlled by WCI, which has its own problems. So the thinking is that we've got to start moving towards getting some consensus within the community that this is a good thing to do, if we believe it is. And then the question is, who should kind of take the lead in looking at this thing? My feeling is, and I think a couple of us who have discussed it, our feeling is that this is maybe something that the Alliance could take on by setting up a committee to just look at all the ramifications of taking something like this on. I talked briefly to Carol Brocky this morning, and she seemed to agree that maybe this is something the Alliance could take on. And so we, PPAC, clearly is another one of the parties that would be involved in this. And probably, if there is a committee established, that committee ought to have probably one of us as a member on it, and certainly somebody from the Alliance and others who might be able to contribute to this kind of an effort. So that is underway. Nancy, you've been fairly close to this thing. Do you have further comments to make about it, of any kind?
No, I think you're pretty spot on with everything, that has been going on and needs to go on, all the different parts. What that does though, is bring us back to a decision we made at our last meeting about the landscaping.
Right.
Because it doesn't look, if this happens, it doesn't look like road turnover is something that's gonna happen in the near term.
Right. Yeah, I think it would certainly not make sense for us to accept the roads in Cypress Grove, or Cypress Grove 1 and 2 at this point, and then have to return them over to the HOA. So that's gotta be part of the calculus here.
A lot of your discussion, and I know there's people been discussing
Yeah.
this, is it officially written up in a, like we do a group report, a safety report, has this road committee,
There is no road committee at this point.
well, whatever.
Yeah.
Is there any official notes that
No.
we can keep track of?
There's the only document that I know that references it, not document, forum in which this was discussed because it came up at a board meeting.
Mhm.
WCI proposed, it was a quick pro quo. They wanted something, I don't remember what it was, but they wanted something. And it was, oh, by the way, if you give us that, we'll give you we won't fight or we'll participate in the Pelican
Yeah,
turnover.
David Caldwell was at that CDD.
I don't remember who it was,
Yeah,
but I know
'cause I was there too.
that's where, from my perspective, that it started.
Yep.
But they were looking
But I
for
mean,
something.
there has been a lot of discussion, but
Oh,
nobody's
yes.
done anything officially to just say, here's where we are, other
Well,
than
I
what
think-
you came up with?
I don't think that, there hasn't really been much in the way of meetings or whatever,
Oh,
but
right.
there've been, I know Rod had started
Rod
having.
Senior is very interested in this.
Rod Senior's very interested, and Rod had started having discussion with bond counsel about what it would take to defease the bonds. There are pieces of it that will come together as, that other people have started working on. This lobbyist, unfortunately, he's tied up through the 2015 legislative session, so I think he's not free to meet with anybody even until like March.
Well, how did he get hired? Who hired him?
Yeah.
The
The
CDD.
supervisors.
Yeah, but
CDD.
they
On
ordered,
on our behalf?
Huh?
No,
No,
they've
on their-
hired him for a couple of things.
Couple of things.
Yeah. which
Okay,
is-
so he wasn't hired specifically
No,
for this?
No.
No, he was hired to look into the possibility, at least that's written up in my CDD report, that, he was hired to look into the possibility of having state grants help fund some of the issues that we have at the
Okay, all right,
CDD.
right. That I'd heard
And
about
they
before.
were,
And that
it
makes sense.
sounded as a good
Under
reason.
that context, that does, there's funding available that we've been self-funding.
Right.
And we could've got the state to do for us.
There's nothing that can be done in this session of the legislature, first place, because this guy isn't available. Secondly, most of what has to be done there is already locked in.
Right.
So it's gonna have to be
Okay.
coming around in the 2017 session of the legislature. If there is legal movement that needs to be made, and if there's legislation that needs to come to this thing, it's gotta be done.
Well,
Is-
the heart of my
Right.
question was only the finances.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we were now paying for a lobbyist,
No.
because heretofore, we've gotten it for free
Yeah.
with Paul.
Yeah,
Paul has been our lobbyist.
lobbyist, yes, I understand that.
And
but
I
Paul-
certainly wouldn't want to throw away a reliable, free asset for a
Well,
paid lobbyist.
What you need to understand, Paul is backing away from this thing at this point.
We shouldn't let
Hmm?
We shouldn't let him.
He has to.
He has to. Paul has to back away from it.
Okay.
He has offered himself, his advice and counsel, but as far as, he's already done quite a bit of work on it. But we have to pick up the ball, or set up a group to pick up the ball.
Okay.
But he's willing to be advising and counseling.
And Rod will be a big asset. Rod's the one that started, this is always something Paul's had in the back of his head and he's noodled a little bit, but Rod really, with the WCI request, started moving toward
Okay.
talking to other communities in the state that are trying to do the same thing that we would like to do. The difference is, they're turned over already.
Can I ask, only in hearing comments in the audience at some of the CDD meetings, is Rod's interest because he doesn't want Pelican Preserve within the CDD?
No, I wouldn't say at all.
No, I don't
I've
think
never
that-
gotten that
I don't
impression.
think so. I don't think
Okay.
so.
All right, I was just curious,
but
because
I-
he's not part of Pelican Preserve.
That's right. But I think, Rod's one of these people who steps back and really looks at what
Okay.
He
makes
did.
sense.
He
in
did.
these
Oh, yeah, he
situations.
has a lot of good comments.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was
well,
just curious as to where he was coming from.
Right.
Well, where I think, my sense of it, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but the global picture was Rod says, we're self-financing, the CDD, and there's some free money out there if you just.
Well, that lobbyist was a
Mhm.
great idea.
If you just go
I
and
thought
ask
that's
for it.
fabulous. Yes.
Well, lobbyist wasn't even part of that. And he mentioned a number of grants that were available to do certain things. It started, I believe, with the water in Gateway, when they realized
yeah.
the magnitude of the problems
Yeah.
that they've got on their ponds.
Right.
And he said, we don't need to be spending $4 million, we might have state money available.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question about the Cypress Grove. That is currently owned by WCI. It's
Correct.
funded by residents.
Mhm.
Why does the legislature have to get involved in that at all?
They don't at this
They don't,
point.
not for that.
They don't at this point.
You're right.
Yeah,
It's
so-
only
so
for-
what-
WCI
that's-
could just.
That's exactly.
It's only for the Pelican
Right.
Reserve portion.
It's only Pelican
Right.
Reserve
Boulevard.
portion, and that's
Boulevard.
what Nancy
Right.
said, that, we kind of raised the hackles of people in the CBD, Rod particularly. In my report, I said that we weren't gonna take over the landscaping and the irrigation until they were ready to turn over the roads. Now, we really hadn't
You're right,
thought,
okay.
we really hadn't thought that through.
Mhm.
So they read that as, we're ready to take over the roads. Well, we're not. I mean,
We're
we
not,
just,
you're right.
that just wasn't a piece of it. So you're absolutely right, Herb.
We,
That
we
would
we
not-
could do it that. We could
Yeah,
turn it,
that's right.
they could turn it directly over to
That's correct.
the HOA.
Yes, I think they could.
Well, the other value in that is, I don't know if there's any more talk of through road
Oh, well,
up
of
there.
course.
Always
Well, so what, the sooner we
That's-
did that,
that's
the sooner
correct.
we could stop that.
That's right. Well,
permanently,
either
right.
stop it, or if it were a private road, have a gate back there
Mhm.
that only residents
That's
can
right,
use.
right.
Which would probably
That
be,
may make more
probably
sense,
the
right.
direction you
Right.
would go in this.
With a trap gate.
Did you really stop?
So,
Strike that.
I wanted to inform you all about this, and there's gonna be more coming down the pike on it. We have to get rolling on the thing, because the whole issue of, particularly of the roads, at some point, WCI is gonna come to us and want us to take over those roads in Cypress Grove.
To influence any legislative action, by when does it have to be done?
What,
They'll start writing legislature for some bills for the 2017 session right after 2016 end. At the March of 2016, they'll start putting
Working on
stuff
next year's,
together for
okay.
the next
putting on
session.
it, and there are a limited number of bills that that each legislator can get in, each can only propose 6 bills.
When I was at the CDD meeting, I got the impression from Rod that there still might be money available for 2016. It had to do with.
That's a different issue, I think. The
And that's the other reason that
availability-
consulting firm was
the-
hired.
The availability of those funds, I
Yeah.
think, is a
Okay.
different
I mean,
issue.
it's just-
Yeah. And as I said, the whole issue then, it goes up another level if you start to talk about the CDD and our relationship with the CDD and what might be done with regard to that. So there's much to look at, and lots of moving parts, as I said. Any other questions or discussions about that?
Well, do we want to put on this agenda to revisit the landscaping issue, or put that on the next one? That we turned the landscaping part of it down completely.
Right.
Which is fine for now, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's not, I don't want to.
Just leave it the way it is.
I
Yeah,
think,
just
I
wait.
think so,
You're right.
because,
Sure.
because it seems to me that there's no value in us taking over
Right.
the landscaping at this point. Until,
That
No.
message was conveyed to WCI,
yeah,
and then they said, okay, but you will take the entire road if we pull it all together. I said, well, that'd be up to the board.
Yeah.
And then during the discussion, if I'm not mistaken, the board said, well, it could go to the CDD or it could go to the master.
Right. So.
That's how it was left.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's what I recall.
okay.
Okay.
All right. Number 9. I'm sorry, some of you may already know this. I'm sorry to inform you that Chris is resigning from the committee. She has made some wonderful contributions, some very valuable contributions to us. Took over from Ned. We thought he was irreplaceable, but she managed to replace him. So we are going to have to, or we don't have to, but I think we need to find another member, and we need to find somebody who had the skills that Chris brought to the job.
I agree. I can agree with that.
And so what I had a brief discussion, our procedure in the past has usually been to have the Alliance put out an email requesting people to, who are interested.
Step
That's
forward,
the-
yep.
Step forward. So I would propose, I talked to Carol about it this morning, and she said she would, they would be willing to do that. So I think that's the first step. Fortunately, Chris has said that she would be very willing up through April, when the budget some of the budget stuff is put together. She would be willing to help with that process, but I think we need to move along.
Oh, absolutely.
Replacing her as quickly as possible.
So we specifically want somebody with accounting, finance
Yes,
background.
exactly. Now, it would be desirable that that person have not only accounting and finance background, but also be from.
Full-time resident.
Be a full-time resident.
Resident, right.
And be from Cypress Grove.
Absolutely.
But the number one is the financial background, to my mind, because that's absolutely critical. So in any event, I will draft up an email to be put out by the Alliance, and with your approval of that, we'll have
Could
Carol
you-
get it out.
Could you ask for volunteers from Cypress Grove area with financial background and
Well-
put some conditions on it?
Well, no, I think I think it's gotta be a general one, but
Well, you could do a general one, but just state why you're looking for somebody from Cypress Grove and why you need somebody from a financial background.
Well, certainly we'll say that we need somebody with a financial background. I think that them being from Cypress Grove could just be part of our criteria.
And willing to work for nothing.
No, it's the big retirement benefits that you hear.
Absolutely.
So we'll be doing that. Any other questions on that? Okay. Gateway meeting attendance, we are only signed up for somebody attending the GSCDD meetings through the end of this month. Diane, what dates are they in December?
The 3rd and the 17th.
The 3rd and the 17th.
Did they change any of theirs? The supervisors, because of the holidays?
No.
No, not to my knowledge.
No,
These
okay.
are the
The
stuff
3rd
ones
and
they, when they
17th.
set the
We are,
schedule, they worked
we
around
are,
it.
ours is the 10th, and they are
Yes.
the two surrounding Thursdays.
Yes.
Yeah, I can do either one of those.
You could do either one of those?
Yeah.
Herb, why don't we let you do December 3rd?
I should be able to do the 17th.
17th, Nancy will do the 17th.
Do you want January date?
Yeah, why don't you give us June?
7th and 21st.
What, 7th and 21st? I could do the 7th,
I can do the 21st.
okay. Okay. I think that's sufficiently far ahead at this point. All right. Committee member requests and audience comments. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have
Request?
in our packet was a note from Tony Perez to most of us, but it says, it has to do with sunshine laws and comments raised by PPAC members. This specifically was talking about our landscaping agreement. Was there some talk about changing landscaping agreement, or whether we had the right to bid that or not? It says, does paragraph 12 mean that PPAC and the district are no longer involved
That
in the
was
bidding process? That was your
one
note.
of my questions.
Right. Did we get an answer? I read
I
through
don't-
the answers,
That-
I never got an
went-
answer.
Tony went through the whole contract, and that will be addressed in his new version.
Because typically,
We've
Yeah,
done
this
it.
is- This was
Something's
Nancy's,
changing?
this
Yeah.
was Nancy's question about the O and M agreement.
yeah.
Right,
Right,
right.
right.
And that was brought up with Tony.
But I don't think we have an answer.
We don't have an answer yet. I mean, basically, we do have an answer. Let's wait till Tony comes back with his new agreement, okay?
Well,
Before we-
okay, I guess what is the status quo? What do we have, in the past, we were doing it. Is there something that's changed, is my question.
Well, the HOA was doing it, but it came to us for,
Approval, and it's still gonna do that.
The HOA did it? That's
Yeah,
not
the-
my recollection. We
Oh, no,
interviewed
the
the
CDD
landscaping.
put it out
people.
for bid, that's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah.
We did it for landscaping, and we did it for pond maintenance, and we
Right.
did it for security.
Okay, based on some of the discussions, if I can remember, Scott, I think we will continue to do
Okay.
that, okay?
For
Let's
bidding
wait.
out the landscape maintenance?
We bid out landscape, we bid out security, and we bid out the ponds.
That's right.
Mhm.
And as.
We
there was a point-
being who?
This group.
CDD.
Us.
Okay.
Us.
Because,
PPAC effectively.
Oh.
because
CDD.
midway
CDD.
through this thing, we were about 2 years into the agreement, and WCI, in the throes of their bankruptcy, changed, without consulting us, the security company and the landscaping company. And once we found out, we put WCI on notice that if they change something, then they're paying. But we're collecting the tax for it, and we had no intention of changing. And the compromise, when the dust settled, was we laid out the new security agreement with the one we currently had, or the proposed new security, and the proposed new landscaping agreement, and it did not align with our existing agreements, and they backed off and they went away, because they were trying to uniform all of their communities, customize all their communities. But
Okay.
because we're different, because of the bankruptcy and the fact that those funds are controlled here at the CDD, we had the right of telling them, no, we're not making the changes.
Right, I just want to make sure I'm clearly understanding. Phil said "we," then he said CDD, so I don't know who you're
Well,
talking about.
I meant PPAC as a in other words, yes, we are this.
The people sitting here.
We are a creature of the CDD.
Right.
Yeah.
well, what
Nancy,
was,
I think,
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, the CD, clearly the CDD's it's gotta be a CDD approval.
well, what happened the last time I was involved with it was this group went over what we thought the criteria ought to be.
Right.
And then you
Right,
all put it out for bid.
Right, and that was, I remember doing that for the ponds.
Right.
For the maintenance of the ponds.
Yes.
And
We
then
did
you
it for
collected,
what-
and then you collected
Right, we did the bids and all that.
Yeah.
But I don't remember doing any other,
Well, you weren't here then,
You
but
weren't
it was
here.
done. It was
Okay.
done before your time, It was even before Al Abdo, I believe.
No,
I think
Al
it was,
was
Landscaping
here
we
the
know.
last
was
time.
it Alan, or I
I
thought it was
haven't done any
Knight?
landscaping maintenance.
No, we
Agreements.
just went ahead and
Let the associate.
renewed it.
We renewed it.
Yeah.
But like for ponds, for instance, sometime in 16, the ponds work group is gonna recommend to PPAC that we go out for a new bid. Because
that
we've been with
yeah,
these
that I
people
got, yeah.
long enough.
I just,
Yeah, but we will do the same thing for landscaping and the same.
And
thing
security.
for
okay, I'm
security.
not
That's-
sure where you are on your landscaping contracts, because I know different areas have changed through the master association under the, maintenance agreement. Am I-
Say what?
Tony's looking into that, because, I mean, one of the key things is the lawyer, if you go through his blue line agreement, he wanted to have an exhibit D where we would have to outline these competitive solicitation requirements applicable to the district, et cetera, et cetera. Tony's like, no, the district is gonna handle that.
Okay, so we're not talking about changing in the frequency of mowings, or changing in the frequency of herbicides, or or changing in the frequency of.
No, changing the scope, no,
All right,
no,
okay.
no.
Okay, I don't care about the legal stuff.
Okay.
I'm only in the day-to-day things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever's legally we gotta do, but I don't want somebody coming in and bastardizing our agreement to get a lower bid and the guy doesn't do anything. That's what almost happened to us.
No, that's not what I
Okay,
meant
gotcha.
or intended or anything, I just,
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I read that, I do read these things.
And
I have
then,
questions.
and then they were gonna charge us
no, they're not.
for putting the
No,
bids
that's
out.
out.
I saw that and I said, huh?
I mean, I have a whole, I mean, I had 3 pages of,
Yeah.
you know, what he was planning to do, not do, I don't wanna go through that, let Tony handle that, and then
Okay.
we'll go over it.
Any other committee member requests, comments, audience comments? Trudy, did you,
No, thank you.
Gail,
I have a couple.
you wanna, can you do, oh, that's all right.
We
Let's
don't-
stay there.
Yeah, we don't need, there's nobody on the phone,
Stay where you are.
so we're okay. Oh, but you need
For
a recording.
Yeah, we've got
you
a
do have
recording,
to stay.
that's all. Diane's right here, we're good.
Yeah, okay. On the financials, just one comment. The reason that you have so much extra money, could it be because, Severn Trent just separated Pelican Preserve's funds from the rest of Gateway?
They've always been separated.
Would any of that trickle down to us?
They've always been.
They've always been separate.
No.
Yes.
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 You wanna think they have, but Gateway has been receiving the interest.
No,
No.
we've gotten the interest on our own accounts.
Hey, I don't think you're right, but all right.
Well, I can't speak to the whole budget, but I do know specifically bonds, and that's been a significant portion, has never been commingled. The money we pay in our ad valorem, non-ad valorem, has always been,
And the-
even under the old folks.
And the cash accounts that we have are Pelican, they
Zero.
are
Cash accounts.
002 accounts.
I've been watching it since 2010, so I know for the
Okay,
last 5
I guess
years.
I'm talking about the reserve funds,
The
maybe?
reserve funds also
Are
are,
separate.
they are separate, and they are our reserve funds, and they are separate. They're in the 002 account.
It's only 2 years old. We've only been kept for 2 years, the reserves, but they're ours.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what I understood, but all right.
You may be right, but it's
Yeah.
not to my
I
recollection.
don't think so.
Well, they specifically just separated them, didn't they?
No.
What they specifically separated was we asked the board to approve the fact that we could put our money into certain instruments in line with the Florida statutes. And that's what they approved, that they've always been separate. But now we instructed Severn Trent to ladder these investments $100,000 a month or so for, and I don't think Greater Gateway's doing that at all.
No, they're not.
It's only us.
That's what I'm saying.
Because they don't have any reserves.
That's that's when they separated them out.
No.
more.
No, they were there.
They were there, they were always separate.
They were always separate.
But
They
I think
just-
they were
they just-
prohibited from putting them into an investment grade.
Right.
And how did they describe the $10,000 worth of interest that Pelican Preserve just got?
Well, that's because that's what we got from our funds.
Which is not very much, given.
Not
how
very
many
much,
funds-
It
because
wasn't very
they,
much.
they were in money markets. I mean, they were getting, 0.19, I think, wasn't
That's
that
why
it?
we're doing
I
that.
think that 10,000 wasn't even, that was a bogus number too, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know.
I think it was.
But in any event, we've gotten the,
Well, they're definitely separated now.
Yes.
Right, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
the ponds, I have a question about that. The Armor Max, it's the most expensive, problem solver, but didn't Gateway have a problem with the installation of the Armor Max? And, Latour's, when the ponds went down, what were they saying the last meeting?
I believe they had problems with a particular contractor and the installation, and it may not have been
I'm
an
not
Armor
aware of a
Max.
problem, because we're using the same contract.
Well, no,
Street
no,
Diamond.
No, I'm saying they had an earlier contractor that they had a problem with.
We did have at Gateway, there was a contractor on Pond 104 that was relieved of his duties
Right.
due to deficient work. And so they've, the board's elected to bring in another contractor to finish it up and do some additional work on top of that. And that was, the Armor Max was installed incorrectly initially, so they're coming back and reinstalling portions of it and building it up to meet the spec.
So they had somebody other than Extreme?
Yeah.
Prior to that, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, I wasn't even aware of
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
they did.
And then there was discussion, there was some pilot projects done earlier with another product that the contractor was misled by the manufacturer's representative. And that work has to be, the contractor is taking it on his own to complete that in a proper fashion. 2 ponds in Pelican, and there's 2 areas, 2 lots in Gateway.
In ponds 25 and 29, which are the ones behind Avila, when we did those, we did them with the best product in the market that we were aware of then, called GeoWeb.
Yeah.
And we put the GeoWeb in, everything was fine, looks beautiful. When we became aware of the benefits of Armor Max, which goes further into the water and is warranted, the contractor on his own that installed the GeoWeb came back to us and said, I understand you're considering us to put Armor Max in your new ponds in calendar year 15, which we are. If I get that contract, I will repair those other 2 at no cost to Pelican to bring them up to the standard.
So we're planting littorals, what percent are we planting in those?
I'm not sure where, to answer your question, in general, 25% of a pond.
25.
That's our standard.
You have to
And we-
pay 25.
Well-
But for Lee County, that's a whole other thing.
That's,
But-
yeah, that's a different.
That's a whole other
That
can of
works
worms,
in
but
the
anyway,
CDBG.
25% is our target, that's the Lee County standard, and we meet that easily by virtue of the golf course area and preserve areas on most of our ponds. Now, going beyond that minimum that we're trying to get to, if it makes good sense because of wave action and erosion and other things, we are installing a band of littorals. It gets a little tricky with the Armor Max, and I can't totally tell you right now exactly what that's going to be. I should know within 2 weeks, because you don't want to cut the Armor Max to put in plants. And I'm not completely comfortable in giving an answer to that right now.
Okay, then I.
But it is a pilot. What we're going to do are our new pilots.
My last question is on road turnover. If you did turn that over to, the new sections, to the new section, if you turn, if it stayed in Pelican Preserve, the ones of us that are paying on the bond now, would we have to pay for their maintenance too?
Well, any way you cut it, whether the roads are turned over to the CDD or whether they go directly, we're gonna have to pay for the maintenance of those roads.
We are?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that what you said?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then why don't they pay for ours? Because they don't pay for anything on the bond that we pay on.
Right.
That's right, but that's the bond, that's separate than maintenance.
That's for building the road.
That's for building the roads, that's separate from the maintenance of the roads, Gil.
Theoretically, they paid for their roads in the price of their home.
Right,
Right.
yes, I understand that.
So,
Right.
we did.
but as far as maintenance is concerned, in paying their fees,
Oh, it's just maintenance.
it's
Okay.
maintenance, just maintenance.
Okay, and the thing about Rod Senior, Rod Senior, in my opinion, at the meetings I've been at, he wants Pelican Preserve to pay more. He wants to get greater money from us, or he always thinks we should be paying more. That's,
You are 100% correct, and he's right up front about it.
Yeah,
He said that when he was campaigning.
campaigning.
And he felt
And that's
that
what
we
he
had a
does.
responsibility
Yeah.
to provide benefits to the children of Gateway that weren't quite as well off possibly as we were.
But it's
And
also
he has
not
taken no
opposed-
efforts to do that
Yeah.
since he's been on the board though.
Right.
No, I think he keeps running into roadblocks.
Well, obviously, because we told him even though we supported the
But-
election, we would never agree on that.
But he also would support separation of Pelican.
Yes, well,
So-
I can see that happening because he's seeing that he's not gonna get any extra money, so why have us? I mean,
Well,
cut and dry.
he has our expertise.
Well, you see,
we
we're,
should
we're deep pockets, that's right.
Yeah.
And we're working very closely with our counterparts in Gateway Ponds and the Tinkle Group. They're learning and,
Yes, that's good.
yeah,
And they have a lot of money they gotta spend.
Yeah.
they're taxing themselves, so who cares?
Is that it?
That it, Gail?
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm done.
Okay. Any other audience comments? Next meeting is December 10th, 2 p.m. Anybody at this point know that they can't make it?
I will be here.
I will be here.
I should
I
be here.
postponed my trip
Okay,
back home.
there are at least 5 of us who will be here, so that should be okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Bob
Second.
makes it.
Third it,
John-
fourth it.
Meeting is adjourned.
You want copies of that, right? I'll
Yes.
get them to make it for us.
Scott, can you make a copy of this? Sarah, don't leave.